They say you can see betrayal coming, but they're wrong. It hit me like a bullet, tearing through everything I thought I knew. My wife, the woman I trusted, took everything. My love, my trust, my pride. She left me shattered, and I'm the one left picking up the pieces. Now, I stand here, staring into the eyes of the man I've become. I'm not sure who he is anymore. The cracks are showing, and I'm afraid they might break me for good. How did I fall this far? And when will the ground finally give out beneath me? November 12th, 2005, Friday, 6 p.m. When I left the big man's office, Myra was waiting for me. She hugged me and whispered, "My hero." I laughed, and she smiled playfully. "You can't stop helping people, can you? I heard you were trying to sort things out at St. Vincent's. It was more about Deputy Deal and McConnell and a few JSO guys. I just tried to make sense of things. I'm not a hero. I'm just a lawyer." She leaned closer and rested her head against my shoulder. "You can't help yourself, Mr. Maitland. Everyone sees that but you. Back when you were less sure of yourself but more dedicated, you were still the same. I thought if you showed a bit more care for those around you, people would notice. But you seemed to care only about Debbie. I thought that was a shame because many people could see how unhappy you were. That was my fault, not Debbie's. You wouldn't have felt that way if things had been better between you two. It's hard to say what came first. The important thing is that we are going to spend some quality time together tonight, right? I can't wait. What do you want to do tonight besides the main event? Let's keep it open, Myra. Maybe we can go to the landing, grab a drink or a bite to eat and watch the boats. That sounds great. When will I see you at my place? It's almost 5:30. I have a few things to finish up. How about 7? I'll be waiting, looking forward to your arrival. I'll hold you to that. I had just returned to my office where Cheryl had already left for the day when my phone rang. "Bill? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Debbie. You heard about what happened?" "Yeah, people are talking about it." "Did they really try to take him away?" "It was a bit more complicated. There was just a mix-up about them serving a warrant on Bell." For a moment, I wondered why I was explaining. I wouldn't have hidden the truth from Myra or anyone else, but I was used to protecting her from my job and my world for so long. I had probably done well, even if it meant shutting her out. It was too late to change that now. Oh, it sounded intense. "I'm sorry to keep you. I know you want to leave the office. You probably have plans. I didn't mean to keep you busy on the phone." "No problem, Deb. I had some work to wrap up. Do you have plans? The kids are with you tonight?" "No to all of it. No plans. I'm just staying home tonight. BJ is at a friend's house, and Mom and Dad are going to a concert with Kelly. Can you believe it? A Christian rock concert. Mom says those bands are really popular with teens right now. I doubt Kelly's plans for the future are changing, but it's nice to see her spending time with Mom and Dad. How are the kids doing? I haven't talked to them in a couple of weeks. I keep meaning to, but things are better, Bill. Don't worry about the kids. Mom gets more out of them than I do. Kelly is getting straight A's and might be the valedictorian if she keeps this up. BJ has solid B's, which is a big improvement from last year. I'm glad they're doing well. I'm just surprised you... Then I stopped myself. I was about to bring up something I shouldn't. Why not say it, Bill? Don't be so polite. You were going to say you were surprised I wasn't out socializing, right? I could sense her annoyance, though it was muted. Not long ago, she would have been much more direct. She sounded tired. I wasn't going to say that, Deb, really. It's just that with both kids away, there's no reason for you not to go out, that's all. Please don't take it the wrong way. Are you okay? You sound different. It's been a long week. And tonight, well, never mind. I just felt like staying in. Thanks for telling me about the kids. You're doing a great job as both Mom and Dad. As soon as I said it, I braced myself for the reminder that nothing had changed. She had played both roles for a long time, but she surprised me. Thank you, Bill. I hope you have a nice evening. And then she hung up. I guess it shouldn't have surprised me. Anger can only last so long. Maybe we were finally finding a calmer way to relate to each other. However, something about our conversation bothered me. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it lingered. I tried to push everything out of my mind. I should just be thankful that things were calming down at last. I sat down and checked my computer. There were about 50 emails waiting for me. I quickly scanned most of them. One email caught my attention. It was from New York City and had the subject line, "The Money Man." I opened it, read the message, and made a call. A man answered with a short, "Yes." "Your secretaries must leave by 5 p.m., right? Or do you have male secretaries now?" "We try to be correct about these things, but our secretaries are still mainly women. Sounds like you're from the South by your accent." "It's not too strong, so I'm guessing Florida." "Good guess. And you're from County Cork, I take it?" "Close, actually. The Bronx. Now that we're done with the small talk, I have a wife and 2 kids I'd like to see. What can I do for you?" "This is Bill Maitland from the Jacksonville State Attorney's Office. I received an email from a New York DA named Ryan Murphy. Is that you?" "Yes. And you're talking to the Angel of Death?" "That's correct. Your email mentioned you had questions about the upcoming trial of Bobby Malone, known as the Money Man. What do you want to ask? I don't know much about the trial and thought he was still in a hospital." "He was at the Central New York Psychiatric Center. He was moved 2 weeks ago to a private clinic called Borland Retreat, which is north of New York City." "A private clinic?" "Yes, it's a high-end facility with strong security and constant monitoring. Malone had a serious incident at the previous center, and his doctors fear it could happen again." "I thought New York was facing budget issues. Can you really afford to put a suspect in such an expensive place?" "We can't, but his wife has money. Despite her troubles, there's no divorce, so she's willing to pay to keep him safe and secure." "An incident? Do you think it was planned? I hear he's quite clever. It could be a way to get people on his side." "It was real. I can't share details, but it was serious, and he took steps to avoid being watched. It was a true attempt." Trying to avoid getting caught by the law. Which brings us to the question, what do I have to do with all of this? Quite a lot, actually. You know the trial can't happen here, right? I figured as much. It's going to be much bigger than the O.J. Simpson case. You know the background, right? Who doesn't? Bobby Malone, known as the Money Man, was a figure in charge of other people's money in the busy media hub of the world. People admired him, but his personal life was a mess. His wife found someone else, and Bobby was heartbroken when he learned the truth. Not wanting to simply end his marriage and see her live in less comfort, he took it hard and decided to hire some people to confront her and her new partner. "Okay," Murphy interrupted. "This fits the story of a hurt husband. But usually in the end he realizes it's not worth it and stops the plan against his wife. Unfortunately, he couldn't get to the person going after her partner, so he stepped in to protect him. Not that I'm saying we don't appreciate him saving those 2 people in a messy situation, but it has made things tough for us," Murphy added, his Irish accent getting stronger. "How so? This seems like a clear-cut case. Even a first-year law student could handle this easily." "Really? How could anyone fail? Have you seen any of the news coverage?" "A bit. There are surveys showing he is one of the most admired men in the country, while his wife, April, is not viewed kindly. She left him and their young son for someone else. That's one of the nicer things said about her." "So the public is favoring a man who tried to hurt the mother of his child, someone who hired people to confront 2 others for actions that many of their peers might do? Look at how the media has presented it. He is a dedicated and successful man with a wife and a young son. While he works hard to give them a good life, she is with someone who has connections to royalty. He finds out and, in a panic, hires people to confront them. Then, at the last moment, for reasons he hasn't shared but many think relate to his son, he has a change of heart. He ends up calling off one part of the plan but can't reach the other. He tries to catch up with the companion to warn him, but he sees the danger and does what he can to help. Sadly, he gets hurt in the process. He nearly faces serious trouble while trying to save the person with his wife. He protects the woman involved, and he is also a father to a young child. It's a challenging situation. You, I, and the jury will understand where he's coming from. In the eyes of the law, he may still be found guilty. But every juror will likely feel for him, thinking about how it would feel to be betrayed and still want to protect those involved. Each woman on the jury might wonder what it would be like to be cared for so deeply, to have someone willing to risk everything to keep another safe. He paused for a moment. Tell me how you'd handle this. Remind the jurors that, no matter what happens, some actions are against the law. We've all seen cases where people feel sympathy for the defendant. Is it really that simple? It's like any job. The main ideas stay the same. It's about how you approach it. He laughed a little. I'll have to keep that in mind. Well, Ryan, this has been a good talk, and even though I don't have family waiting for me, someone is expecting me, so why did you call? There's a chance the case might come your way next year. It's a strong possibility. Your area is known for tough juries, and being far from New York might give us a better shot at a fair trial. Plus, having you on our side would help. Okay, I get it. If it comes, we'll take care of it, but that's still a while off. Yeah, I had two main reasons for calling. I wanted to see if we'd want the trial here. What are the reasons? First, Mrs. Malone has picked someone to represent her husband, and that lawyer has been hired. You know him, Lou Walters. He's from your area. I know who he is. What's the second reason? You've gotten a lot of attention too much, really, being labeled the angel of death. But as it started looking like the case might come your way, we looked a bit more into things. And you looked into my personal life. We needed to. I found out about your wife and Doug Baker, their relationship, and the issue at the University of North Florida that led to your divorce. That situation almost ruined your career. And we need to win this case. There will be strong support for Malone, and if he gets set free or has a light sentence, it will reflect poorly on my office. A loss wouldn't look good for us. We can't allow the idea that people might escape real consequences just because they have good public relations. I understand. So the first question is, can you step up and go against Lou Walters? Even though he is a friend and your best friend and the man you trusted to manage your divorce, I know his skills. He's too good to underestimate. He will do whatever it takes to win. He has done it before. To answer your question, Lou is my best friend. I will go against him. We're friends outside of court, but when we're in there, he's my rival. I won the Granny Killer case when nobody thought I could. I can do it again. And the second question, Mr. Maitland was the most important person in this situation. You will ask a jury to judge a man whose life was turned upside down by betrayal. The best he can hope for is to spend a long time in prison for the death of a second hitman and for trying to harm his wife and her partner. He had everything, and now he might lose it all. Chances are he will never see his son again. Can you do that? Because I lost my wife in a similar way? Because I lost my cool and reacted out of anger? You think I will sympathize with him and hold back? Well, yeah. No, I will understand what he is going through and share my feelings with the jury. But then I will remind them that feelings don't belong in the courtroom, and since I've experienced something similar, they will pay more attention to me. You don't need to worry about me having mixed loyalties. I'm the prosecutor. After a moment, you know, I really believe you, Maitland. I think you will do well if he goes to court. So I will speak to my superiors, and if things go that way, we will connect with your boss and you. I look forward to it. Now, if I were you, I would leave the office and spend time with your wife and kids. Enjoy some moments with them. I will, Maitland. And I understand there might be a Patrick Leary working in the public defender's office there. Is that true? Yes, he can be quite a challenge, but he is an excellent lawyer. Do you know him? We know each other. If you see him in a good mood, please tell him that Ryan Murphy says hello, and be ready to dodge if needed. Is that how it is? Make sure to take care of your family, too. It's nice to remember that there's life after hard times. Goodbye. I sat there after hanging up the phone, thinking about the case that would come to Jacksonville next year, if everything worked out. A part of me was anxious about the upcoming trial. Murphy was right about one thing. It would be tough to go against a person who felt deep pain, shame, and anger toward those who affected his life so much. But as Carl Cameron had said, challenging cases are what make practicing law so rewarding. Even though the situation appeared clear, it would be hard to convince jurors to think carefully and follow the law without being influenced by their feelings. I felt like a boxer trying to stay on my feet, with the thought of that trial hovering over me. Honestly, I recognized that I wanted to take on that challenge, even knowing it would not be easy. I went back to the emails. Most were ordinary office matters that I could either ignore or forward to Cheryl. But there were some important ones. Date, November 12, 2005, 2W, Maitland. From Assistant S.A. Roger Hopper, Felony Division 1. Subject, Thoughts on Kevin Butler Case. I wanted to get your thoughts when you have a chance. I'm not sure if you know about this case. It's quite unfortunate. Kevin Butler is a 28-year-old advertising worker at Channel 12 WTLV in Jacksonville. His wife has been missing since spring. There are no signs of trouble, and there is no clear proof that he is involved, though it is something to consider. His actions don't seem to match those of someone guilty. He appears to be struggling since his wife went missing. In the past 6 months, Butler was arrested twice for public drinking, faced issues from a disagreement at a bar, and got a DUI. In a recent incident, he left a bar, drove onto a busy road, and ran a red light, almost hitting a car full of visiting nuns from St. Augustine. He avoided them but ended up in the hospital after nearly hitting a traffic light. Thankfully, the nuns were just shaken up with minor injuries. He was sitting in jail after his release from the hospital and should be facing serious consequences and losing his driving rights. However, one of the community counselors, named Lyle, took an interest in him and contacted Doc Teller for a personal discussion. After talking, they suggested considering a different approach for his case. They believe that Butler is a good person at heart. His wife's sudden disappearance has affected him greatly, and as more time goes by without answers, he seems to be having a harder time coping. They recommend some support and suggested involving guardian ad litem. They think that focusing on children might help take his mind off his worries. We should give him some time, but his record was clean until his wife went missing, and honestly, I believe that losing a spouse without a trace would upset anyone's peace of mind. I'm sharing this with you in case the media finds out about the nuns and his past, which might cause us trouble. If blame has to go around, it should land on those who caused the situation. And you should know that the nuns are asking us to be lenient with him. Not a big surprise. I knew what my instincts told me, and I couldn't deny it touched a nerve with me. Missing spouses, dishonesty, sudden loss, they all made me pause. We did pretrial diversion in some cases, trying to keep it free of politics. But every time we handle a case differently, there's always the chance something serious could happen afterward. And then the media would come after the prosecutors for letting these people off too easily. Maybe he had something to do with her disappearance after all. The partner of someone who is missing or has passed away is often the first person people suspect. They usually have a stronger reason than anyone else to cause harm. Surprisingly often, that first suspicion turns out to be right. But it seemed like Hopper and the police did not believe he was guilty. When you've done this kind of work, you get a feeling for these situations. The trouble he faced after she went missing could be from feeling guilty. Some people think they can escape what they've done, but it takes a certain mindset to live with that knowledge. If you are not someone who lacks empathy, you cannot ignore the truth of your actions. Drinking won't help you forget the guilt, even if many people try. Many times, if those who usually cause trouble don't confess, they end up feeling very sad. Carrying that weight is a heavy burden. However, the behavior he showed could also come from unresolved sadness rather than guilt. When a spouse passes away unexpectedly, you feel the pain, sometimes look for distractions, and eventually find a way to heal, just like I did. If someone leaves you for another person, you eventually move on too. But sometimes people just vanish. More often than you might think, really. There are many unsolved cases of disappearances across the country. Even in Jacksonville, these things happen. No warning, no big fights, no serious money issues, and no proof of something wrong. A husband or wife goes to work, goes on a trip, or simply doesn't come home when expected, and they never return. These cases are less common than those where a body is found, or where we later find out they have started a new life somewhere. Those situations can be faced. The human heart is more able to cope than you might believe. But Butler was stuck in a tough place. You cannot truly mourn if you are unsure whether your wife passed away loving you or is now with someone else. You cannot feel anger, sadness, or truly let go and find a new partner. Though people do attempt to do all those things, you're left in a confusing middle ground. If he didn't cause her harm, he had a right to feel very upset. And maybe he deserved some time to gather himself, especially if Teller believed that too. And Lyle. I'd met Lyle a few times. He was a college professor. Even with Doug Baker often on my mind, and even though Lyle might catch the attention of female students, he appeared to be a kind person. He wasn't just another wealthy person trying to feel better about his background. I had spoken with him a few times to see if he had practical and kind ideas. Although he graduated from Harvard with a degree in literature, he had grown up in a modest neighborhood of small homes, learning about life on the street rather than at expensive private schools. He had feelings, but he also thought things through. So if he believed Kevin Butler deserved another chance, I would probably agree with him. I replied to Hopper, saying he could prepare the documents and we could discuss them on Monday or Tuesday. I mentioned that Butler might change his mind if Lyle and Teller seemed to be onto something important. The phone rang again. It was past 5 and the rain should soon slow down. I imagined Myra standing in front of me. "Mr. Maitland." The voice was clear. "Sheriff Bloodworth. I'm glad I caught you. Most people at the courthouse rush out right at 5. You clearly don't just watch the clock." I didn't respond. I was partly surprised. I hadn't expected to hear from him. I wanted him to lead the conversation. "I shouldn't be surprised, really. Everything I've read about you shows you're a committed person." "And why would you be reading about me, Sheriff?" "After what happened today and my call with Tommy Deacon, I got curious. I looked you up. You've been in the news quite a bit since that Angel of Death story, and there are mentions of you even before that." I let his remarks hang in the air without responding. "I never got to talk to you directly, Mr. Maitland, and I wish I had. What happened earlier today was unfortunate, but it was a mistake on many levels. I understand you believe Mr. Bell has been involved in 3 incidents, one involving a police officer from your department. Now, I know Tommy Deputy Deacon has a quick temper. The officer who was hurt is his friend. Tommy probably overreacted to what he saw as interference with his duties." "What's your reason for calling, Sheriff?" "I wanted to make sure we keep things professional between our offices. I hope you don't jump to conclusions that could lead to problems between our counties later on." I paused for a moment, then asked, "Can I take it that you won't try to remove Mr. Bell as a witness in the William Sutton case? That you won't send anyone with false charges or set up any accidents for Mr. Bell in the hospital?" There was a long silence. Finally, he said, "I know Dallas Edwards has a good memory, and he may have influenced your view of me with stories about my family and me in Satsuma. I understand that he's your boss and that you have a close relationship. I'm not here to argue against what he said. Just know that people see the truth differently. I would say that many people and groups have spent a lot of time trying to prove that I did something wrong, but nobody has succeeded." There was a long pause, and then he continued, "I seriously doubt that Edwards or anyone else has talked about how my family came to Satsuma. It's an interesting story that you might find worth knowing. My ancestors lived in southwest Texas in the 1800s. They were ranchers and farmers. There were maybe a couple of hundred Bloodworths living in a large area. At that time, southwest Texas was a tough place to live, with many dangers. It's a long story, but some Bloodworths had conflicts with their neighbors. Back then, protecting family was very important, and some sought to get back at those who hurt them. When their enemies were dealt with, families would seek revenge. It was a sad cycle. The Hatfields and McCoys are the most famous example of such feuds, but there were many others. Eventually, after many years, there were too many enemies. The Bloodworths suffered a lot. Finally, my great-great-great-grandfather, his brother, and his wife were the only ones left, and they realized they were in danger. They decided to leave Texas and their troubles behind. It took a few years, but they eventually settled in Satsuma. At that time, Satsuma was still a rough place. There were outlaws and people hiding from the law in the swamps, as well as illness and no real order. Some became lawmen and worked to bring some peace to the area. Satsuma was wild, and there were many people of questionable character. The Bloodworths learned an important lesson during their time in Texas. When they had enemies, they acted quickly. That's all in the past now, and no one will ever be punished for it, but people learned that crossing the Bloodworths meant you had to leave the area or face serious trouble. He stopped talking for a moment, and I could hear classical music playing in the background. Of course, that was a long time ago. Nothing like that happens anymore. But it serves as a reminder. Feuds are harmful. People need to get along, even if they don't like each other. If they choose to keep fighting, it can hurt more than just the fighters. It affects their families and loved ones, too. As I said, Mr. Maitland, we hold no hard feelings. We will continue to try to get Mr. Bell here the right way without using any questionable means. I hope you can put aside your anger and let things settle. Do we understand each other?" I took a moment to think, then replied, "As long as you leave Mr. Bell and everyone else in our county alone, I see no reason for us to have any future dealings." "Thank you, Mr. Maitland. That seems fair. I hope you have a nice weekend." I wondered if he would really stay away from Bell. Everything Dallas told me about Bloodworth made me think he wouldn't easily give up. But if he was as rich as Dallas said, I couldn't see Mama Sutton having enough to make Bloodworth want to keep bothering us. Dallas believed Bloodworth was a mean person, but nothing he said showed that Bloodworth was silly. Getting into a fight over a small amount of money didn't seem smart. It probably made sense when he thought his friends could scare Bell into giving in. But now, I still had about 50 emails to go through, and I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to visit Myra's place and enjoy some time with her before dealing with anything else. I wanted to take her to the landing and see how people reacted as they admired her and wished they were with me. I wanted to be with friends, sharing fun and laughter. I wanted to enjoy the good times when I wasn't as serious, forgetting about the exercise I needed to do later. I missed being as relaxed and carefree as everyone else seemed to be on the weekend. I longed for the simple days of the past. I forced myself to look back at the computer on my desk, showing me my tasks. As much as I wished I could forget my duties, I knew I couldn't. I was changing, but I hadn't changed that much yet. November 12th, 2005. Friday, 7:30 p.m. I buzzed the intercom at Unit B6 in the Ellendon Arms. This complex was about 3 miles south of I-295 on San Jose Boulevard near Fruit Cove in St. Johns County. A guard shack stood at the entrance, making it safer than most places. Anyone with enough money could live there, but the extra security reminded me of a private community. Most condos had a similar layout. They featured a large room with high ceilings and a big window that offered a view of several pools, including an Olympic-sized one and a very deep pool where children weren't allowed. There were hot tubs, too, and a set of pools with one designed for endurance and another kept cool. The complex even had a unique challenge. If a resident could handle 30 seconds in the hot pool, followed by 30 seconds in the cold pool, they would win a bottle of champagne on the house. On my visits, I had only seen 6 brave people attempt this, all young men except for one athletic young woman who seemed to manage the temperature change well. I heard footsteps approaching and quickly placed my hands behind my back. The stars twinkled in the sky behind me. "Who is it? Open and see." "You're quite confident, aren't you?" The door swung open to reveal a striking woman. Her hair framed her face in soft curls that glinted like silver. She wore colorful lipstick, and her eyes sparkled with a hint of makeup. A simple blouse hugged her frame nicely, and her fitted silver skirt paired with stylish boots that came nearly to her knees added to her charm. Even though I had seen her before, her appearance left me speechless, especially her unique boots. "Hello, Mr. Maitland. Do you like what you see?" Only as much as a person lost in the desert appreciates finding a well. That much? Even more. She reached for me, and I gently motioned her to step back with one hand. She looked at me with curiosity. I used my other hand to pull the door closed, keeping one hand hidden behind me. She smiled, a soft glow that could brighten any space. "A man of mystery. What are you hiding?" "It could be a box of chocolates for someone who is sweeter than any dessert. It might be a bouquet of the rarest flowers for someone as lovely as you, or perhaps a bracelet that shines like you do." Her eyes lit up, but I noticed a hint of concern in them. "You know you don't have to impress me, Bill. You had me at hello." I revealed what I had been hiding in my left hand, a single long white rose in a crystal holder. Her eyes widened at the sight of the pure petals glimmering in the light. "What's this, Bill?" "A single beautiful rose for a beautiful woman. Like you, Myra, it stands alone and shines among many." I stepped closer and gently held her face with my free hand. "I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm not used to this. I wanted to tell you that you take my breath away every time I see you at the courthouse. You make my heart race when I think of you while I'm in my office. Sometimes I can't believe this is real. Even if we never feel this way again, having this moment makes me feel lucky." Tears filled her eyes. "Bill, why do you keep doing this?" I stepped back, surprised by her answer. I had expected something different. I felt like a nervous teenager again, standing in front of someone special. Her eyes continued to well with tears, and her lips didn't smile as she reached for the rose. She turned to place it on a small table just inside the entrance. Then she slowly turned back to look into my eyes. I couldn't really tell what she was thinking. Do friends give friends white roses for no reason? Do they say things that make their friends cry? She took a step back. Come inside and close the door. Normally, she dressed more casually. She bent down to take off her boots and stepped back, placing her hands on her hips. Do you like how I look, Mr. Maitland? You look wonderful, he answered. What are you thinking? You are so beautiful, Myra. I've dreamed of this for years, and it's even better now. She looked at him closely, but he couldn't help but smile. He took a step toward her, but her intense gaze made him stop. I know what you want from me, she said. She took a small step forward. And what do you think I want from you? To be close to you, he answered softly. She pointed to the white rose and added, Then why do you do these nice things, Bill? It's hard not to do nice things for you, Myra. She moved into his arms, fitting perfectly against him. Then she stepped back, looking deeply into his eyes. I can be your friend, and I like you as much as I've liked any man, but I can't be more than that. And you can't love me, Bill. I told you this before. We can only be friends. He understood enough to not ask more questions. He knew pushing her would only make her leave. As tempting as it was, he chose to honor her wishes. He stepped forward and gently wrapped his arms around her. No more white roses or talks of anything deeper. Just friends, okay? A smile appeared on her face for the first time since she opened the door. Friendship would be enough for now. He could accept that. With a touch of hesitance, she shifted closer and began to playfully engage with him. I get the feeling, I whispered, that we're not going out to eat. You aren't, she replied with a soft laugh. I wondered how my nerves would handle it as she playfully leaned in, teasing me. She moved closer, creating a warm and friendly atmosphere. I leaned back against the door, feeling a bit overwhelmed. When she pulled back and smiled, I just took a deep breath. Once I calmed down, I joked, If you keep that up, I might need to rethink my life choices. As I slid to the floor, she brushed her finger over my lower lip and laughed, saying, At least you'd leave a memory in history. There are better ways I'd like to be remembered, I replied, like being the first to achieve something amazing. As I reached out for her, she playfully moved away, collecting her things a little distance off. No, I took time to look nice, and I want to keep it that way. I pushed myself up from the floor. Why are people so focused on how they look? If you wore casual clothes, you would still stand out. People don't dress the way you think. We dress for ourselves and each other. I want to look nice. Now. I can help you get ready. No, I know how that would go. I want to go out tonight. Just watch some TV until I'm ready. I thought for a moment and then looked out the windows of the condo. I think I'll go downstairs. I'll hang out by the pool for a bit. She looked at me with a smirk. I hate to tell you this, but it's a bit too chilly for most people to be outside right now. You might end up alone, which could be good. You hurt my feelings. After what just happened, you think I'd want to be looking for someone else? She looked at me with a hint of a smile and something deeper. I felt a serious side to her. I think men are always looking for someone else. I moved closer before she could step back. But not tonight. As I took the elevator down, I thought about what I had just seen and heard. We were friends without any romantic ties, and yet I could have sworn I saw a spark of jealousy in her eyes. That didn't make sense. Friends shouldn't feel that way. Why wasn't I still married? It would be simpler to forget all this confusion and just be an unaware husband, but I had made mistakes, and now I was trying to date again. I stepped out at the front of the building and walked to the back. I had to open a gate, but it wasn't locked. There were security guards at the two main entrances, so once you got in, it was pretty relaxed, even though patrols might ask questions. I briefly thought about how much these places cost. They were not regular condos. They belonged to people with a lot of money, at least for Jacksonville and the South. From what I knew about Myra, she didn't come from wealth. I understood the financial side of the state attorney's office, and it was hard to believe someone there could afford a place like this without struggling. I also knew Myra drove a bright red 2005 Lexus ES 330 sedan, which made me wonder more. How was she able to keep up this lifestyle? I wasn't a style expert, but I could tell her clothes didn't come from bargain stores. Nice clothes, nice car, nice home. But I had to stop thinking like that. I realized I didn't know much about Myra except that she had faced a tough childhood. I had no idea about her life after South Florida. Were there important people in her past? Had she been married before? The sad truth was, I didn't know anything about her, and I wasn't going to lose what I had just enjoyed because I couldn't control my curiosity. I jogged to the back, but no one seemed to need help, at least not at the moment. A head full of shiny black curls popped up from the ice pool. As I got closer, she pulled herself up on the edge of the pool, and her strong spirit showed with every move. "Oh, wow!" I handed her the thick red and black towel that was resting on a chair nearby. She looked up, shivering, and raised one thin hand. I leaned in to help her out smoothly. Thanks to the gym, I could do it easily. Once she was on the floor, I stepped behind her and wrapped the towel around her tightly. This might sound odd, but why are you in an ice pool when it's only 45 degrees outside? She rubbed her arms, then wrapped the towel around her hair and dried off quickly. Have you never seen anyone jump into an ice pool? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stare. You surprised me, but seriously, why? It's an incredible rush. You hit the cold, your body reacts, and then suddenly you feel alive again. I even like the coolness afterward. I can see that. You've tried this? Her look answered me, and I smiled back. I wasn't always this old. She kept drying off, seeming unaffected by her surroundings. She pointed to some slacks and a sweater on a nearby chair. After getting dressed, I started to step back. Nice to meet you. I think someone is probably looking for me out front. You don't live here, do you? No. She lifted her sweater over her head, and I tried to glance away in a polite manner. The best thing about having a smaller size is that you don't need to wear extra layers unless you want to. She glanced behind me, and a serious look crossed her face. Please don't tell me you're with her. I turned back and saw Myra. She was wearing a coat that fell to her mid-thigh, belted at the waist, looking soft and warm. Yes. Her gaze changed when she looked at me. You don't seem like one of the usual guys she has around, so you must have money. Are you a millionaire? Just an ordinary guy. She looked down for a moment, then quietly said, Don't get too serious about her. Myra was approaching us then, and I turned back. The look she gave the dark-haired girl was neutral, neither friendly nor unfriendly. Cassandra? I thought you'd be out with your boyfriend tonight. He chose to hang out with his friends, Miss Martinez, so I decided to take a quiet evening for myself. Myra glanced at me, and this time I understood her message clearly. I couldn't find you out front, Bill, so I came back here. It's pretty chilly for a swim tonight, isn't it? Although Cassandra is young enough to enjoy a little adventure. It's nice to try something thrilling now and then. Bill kindly handed me my clothes. I had forgotten how cold it can feel when you come out, especially without something warm to wear. Myra gave a big smile, the kind that shows she knows something. Bill is a true gentleman. He was probably worried you might get cold. He has a daughter who is about your age. I thought it was a good moment to leave. Well, Myra, it's getting close to 8. The landing will be busy soon. We should head out. And Cassandra, it was nice meeting you. You should go inside and warm up. The ice pool feels good on a hot day, but being warm inside is better. Myra smiled that knowing smile again. You're right, we should go. And don't worry about Cassandra. I'm sure she'll be fine before the night is over. Cassandra smiled back, but as I turned to leave, she touched my shoulder. I looked back at her and she said, Don't forget what I told you, Bill. Then she was gone. I turned Myra around and walked her to the front, guiding her carefully. The ground was a bit uneven. As we walked, she said, Poor girl. She's a bit jealous of me. She could make some changes if she wanted, but her place is always full of visitors. Her father has a lot of money from Hollywood. I remember introducing myself to him once, and he smiled at me. She hasn't let that go. I stayed quiet. When she got into the car and pulled her legs in, she reached out and held my arm. I'm sorry, Bill. What for? For feeling jealous of a younger girl. I know it doesn't matter, and I just talked to you about keeping things light. But I didn't respond. I wasn't sure what to say. What I meant about the rules, keeping it light. We're just friends, both of us. You're a romantic, I can see that now. But it could be easy to never mind. If I start acting strange again, just tell me to get a grip. I really want us to be friends. I am, Myra. I am. November 12th, 2005, Friday, 9 p.m., Tangerine, Satsuma County. He stood in front of the plain wooden door that said, Satsuma Sheriff's Office. After about half a minute, he turned around and leaned against the door. He placed his right hand on the heavy metal doorknob and paused for a moment, his eyes fixed on the letter O in office. The door swung open, and he walked in. I'm home, honey. Buddy Joe, one of the two deputies at the front desk, looked up from a magazine. An empty coffee cup was nearby. The overnight deputies went through a lot of coffee to stay awake. The great hero is back. You might want to stop by the emergency room. I heard a lawyer gave you some trouble. Oh, I'm fine, but I think you should have someone check out that hand of yours. As Buddy looked at his hands, Deacon grabbed the empty coffee cup with the orange Satsuma logo and brought it down onto Buddy's injured hand. The cup shattered. Buddy staggered back, surprised. What was that? You must be joking! As Buddy reached for the firearm in his holster, Deacon pointed the barrel of his own gun at him. Without turning around, he knew Harley was behind him with his shotgun raised. Stay out of this, Harley, and you'll be okay. Buddy kept his good hand away from his gun and held his hurt hand gently, wincing in discomfort. Why did you do that, Deacon? I was just joking. It really hurts. I don't like being laughed at, Buddy Joe. You should know that. And Harley, if I look back and you're pointing that shotgun at me, we're going to have problems. When he glanced back, he saw Harley lowering the shotgun and stepping back into the shadows. Harley raised his hand in a peaceful gesture, and Deacon turned back to Buddy. It really hurts. I need to see someone about this. Call Smith in from patrol. The county should be fine for a few hours while you get that checked. Buddy Joe jumped at the calm voice coming from behind the front counter. A dim light from behind the figure created a shadow. The office lights were set so they didn't shine directly on the doorway. Yes, sir, Buddy replied quickly. I'll call him right now. David Bloodworth, the sheriff, looked at his chief deputy with a stare that could make most visitors uncomfortable. He started it, Blood. They locked eyes for a moment, and finally Bloodworth shook his head and stepped into his office, motioning for Deacon to follow. As Deacon entered, Bloodworth sat behind the washed oak desk with his nameplate reading Sheriff David Bloodworth. As he sat down, he said, We've talked about this. You need to control your anger. I might have to think about docking your pay for his hospital bill. Deacon took a seat in the comfy chair facing his boss. First of all, there won't be any bill. No doctor will want to charge the department. Second, you can bill me. I can handle it. Bloodworth leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. Deacon thought again that he didn't look like a nearly 60-year-old man. His thinning hair was still dark, and his deep-set eyes were a unique shade of green. He could see why some people thought the sheriff was attractive. David Bloodworth, with his influence and wealth, could have easily made a big impact in this small county if he had chosen to. I know it wouldn't bother you to pay the price. I could have you removed. That temper of yours is risky and makes you hard to predict. Deacon took a deep breath. In a way, it was part of the challenge. It felt like sitting in a room with a wild animal. The animal could end his life in an instant if it wanted to. That's why you should never show fear. Yeah, boss, you could do that. But how many other people do you have working for you that are smart? Loyal folks who have proven themselves over the years. Bloodworth was quiet for a moment. Even knowing how this situation would end, you couldn't endure that silence without thinking of the things that had happened here before. Not many, Tommy, not many. And I know you control your temper except when you feel you can let it out like you did earlier. But honestly, you overreacted. Buddy Joe probably won't use that hand for weeks or months. He'll be fine. His best place is sitting here at the desk anyway. You drove straight back from Jacksonville. Did you even stop to eat? I just wanted to get back. I need to relax a bit. A visit to Mary Lou at the Waffle House will help me feel better in an hour or two. The whole situation felt chaotic. Tell me again what happened? When Deacon finished, Bloodworth just rocked back and forth gently. It's not your fault, Tommy. I know. Who could have predicted that Maitland would choose that day to take a heart patient outside? If the old man hadn't been by the river, he'd be in worse trouble tonight. Yeah, you can't prepare for everything. What do you think of Maitland, the luckiest person around? Under Bloodworth's cold gaze, Deacon continued, he seems calm in tough situations. He seems skeptical about the warrant, and he knows a bit about boxing. Someone has taught him. Well, we need to think of another way to deal with Bell, but it can't point back to us. Why? Deacon was up and pacing. Why keep trying? If you're going to take care of Bell, why worry about anyone thinking we had a hand in it? Bloodworth tapped the desk, where they used to deal with bribes and cash. Because we have been paid $100,000 by Mrs. Sutton to get her son out of jail. It's about our reputation. Deacon knew it was silly, but leaned forward on the desk anyway. I've never understood that. What is $100,000 to us? You have so much money from different places. Why go to such lengths for this amount? I'd be really upset if I faced danger for what feels like pocket change. Since when is $100,000 small change? You can't be that stingy. I might not know everything, but I can see how much you're dealing with. $100,000 isn't a big deal, my friend. It really isn't. Bloodworth stopped moving and tapped his fingers on the desk. How much money do you have in your accounts? 4 or 5 million, right? That sounds about right. Deacon paused, realizing Bloodworth had a good grasp of the situation. Pretty close. Think about this, Tommy. If you weren't working for me, how much do you think you'd be making? 1 million, 10,000? Or would you be doing security work for someone else? Where can someone like you around here earn this kind of money? Probably nowhere. Exactly. I just want to say that you're worth this money, enough to let you retire someday and raise Bobby's son to have a better life, all thanks to me and my family. And you should know, Bloodworths always understand the value of money. There are no small payments or bribes. Sure, we earn more now through illegal activities than from gambling or other things, but things can change. You can't be sure the money will always come in. So when someone offers me $100,000 for a little work from my team and some small expenses, you're right. I'm going to take it. So instead of worrying about why we're focusing on a small payment, let me do the planning, okay? Finally, Deacon said, all right, you can't argue with success. So what are we going to do? I'm not sure yet. I might call Mrs. Sutton again and talk to her. Better you than me. She seems quite intimidating. Be careful how you talk about the mother of my half-brother. A hint of a smile appeared on Bloodworth's face. Half-brother? You and your father? He must have been quite something. She showed me a photo of them from about 35 years ago. She wasn't bad. She said she wanted me to know it was my half-brother I was helping. I guess she thought that would motivate us. That's a touching story. Are you going to tell him? No. She didn't want him to know. I wouldn't want any trouble after helping him with that charge. You've heard stories about my father. He must have had a strong reputation, and Miss Sutton's husband seemed less assertive. She appeared drawn to my father, but that's going to stay between us. I've already set aside too many possible heirs to the Bloodworth estate. Deacon looked toward the door of Bloodworth's office, thinking about his own plans. He had work to do. You know, Blood, probably the smartest thing to do is let me gather information quietly. I can watch Maitland until I see a chance to act. He's the one slowing down Sutton's case. If he's gone, it will take them a while to find someone new and get back on track. The longer it takes, the better our chances will be. Bloodworth just stared at him quietly, and Deacon felt as if he could read his thoughts. It's an interesting idea, but it seems you just want to do it for your own reasons. That's not true, but it wouldn't be a loss. Don't even think about it. Why not? I can handle it without anyone knowing. We've done it before. Not this time. I want you to stay away from him and keep out of Jacksonville. Why? Are you letting that old story scare you? No. He leaned back, adjusted something under the desk, and the lights faded to a near dark. He became a shadow in the dimness. Go have a good time tonight. I need to think. Deacon was about to leave when Bloodworth said, I don't buy those old stories, but I trust my gut. There's just something about him that feels off. Deacon was leaving when he heard Bloodworth add, and I trust my gut. November 12th, 2005. Friday, 9 p.m. I drove my car into the landing's parking area and slowed down to find a spot. I noticed a police car parked in the shadows by the river entrance. The Jacksonville Landing was a two-story place shaped like a horseshoe, with restaurants, bars, and shops facing the St. Johns River and the Riverwalk in front and the street behind. It usually attracted a lot of visitors, especially on Friday and Saturday nights. Downtown Jacksonville had always faced safety concerns, despite the city's efforts to reassure both tourists and residents that it was safe at night. Recently, more young professionals had begun moving downtown into trendy lofts, hoping to enjoy an exciting city life like those in bigger cities such as New York or Atlanta. Sometimes, I thought I was being overly critical, shaped by years of family life. I had been married with children for a while, and had spent much of my adult life in the suburbs south of Jacksonville. If I were single and young, I might have liked the loft lifestyle, being part of the community, enjoying the nightlife, and meeting new people without family responsibilities. Still, even with the arrival of young professionals, the Landing hadn't completely come back to life. The city continued to work hard to change the idea that downtown could be scary after dark. Reports of theft and other problems kept people worried. I drove closer to the police car and stopped a little way away. I got out and walked over to the officer inside. He looked at me carefully but stayed seated. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Hi, I'm Bill Maitland with the state attorney's office. It looks quite busy tonight. Do you know if there's a nearby place to park that isn't too far to walk?" I didn't recognize him, and he didn't recognize me. "I wish I could help, but—" He glanced behind me and then back to see Myra coming our way. I was used to her presence. She still made my heart skip a beat. The officer looked a bit surprised. "Officer, I know this might be a bother, but could you help us? Mr. Maitland is an important prosecutor for the county, and I'm his assistant. He's kindly taking me out for my birthday. Can you believe I'm turning 35? I was feeling a bit down. I don't mind walking, but—" She turned slightly, showing off her outfit and those stylish boots. "These boots look great, but they're hard to walk in. I'd hate to celebrate this birthday with an injury, so could you please help?" He looked at her for a moment, then at me as if he couldn't believe what he saw. He started the car and said, "Please follow me, Miss Martinez, Myra Martinez, and you are?" "Officer Wilkes, Barry Wilkes." "I'll remember that, Officer Wilkes." I think he was surprised. Then he signaled for me to follow. "Come with me, sir. I'll show you to the delivery area. There are usually a few spots there. I'll give you a pass for official business." Back in the car, I couldn't help but laugh. "Don't you feel a bit embarrassed? That was too easy." She smiled back. "You have a wild imagination, Mr. Maitland. He was just being nice." "Have I told you that your style should be in a museum? By the way." She gave me a serious look, but I didn't think she was really upset. "We don't know each other that well, Mr. Maitland. Plus, there are still some guidelines about certain topics. I think if you look, you'll find that those rules changed back in the 90s. You've looked into that?" "No, but I'm pretty sure it's not in effect anymore." "Well, it's still a rule here in this car." But there was nearly a smile on her face. I decided to save that discussion for later. We followed Officer Wilkes down a side road marked "No Entrance" and parked in an open spot. Myra took the official business sticker from him with a smile and a "Thank you, Officer Wilkes." That was almost too much, I told her as we walked towards the entrance of the landing. As usual, quite a few men, women, and children sat on the raised steps by a stage overlooking the river. A good rock band was playing lively songs to entertain the crowd. We navigated around the edge of the area, making our way behind the stage amidst happy cheers. She smiled and linked her arm with mine as we reached the Riverwalk, stepping down to the railing by the river. The Main Street Bridge sparkled with red, blue, and green Christmas lights. We strolled along the water, admiring the lights of the Riverwalk and Friendship Fountain across the river. It was a chilly night, and I was glad to have Myra with me. It was a good night to be there. At the Mexican Rose, we looked for places to sit. The place was crowded, so we went inside, finding it just as busy. I wondered if showing my ID would help us get a seat. "Hello, Mr. Maitland and Miss Martinez," a familiar voice greeted us. I looked around and saw Deal seated at a long table in the back, waving us over. "Come on back," he called, and I noticed Mitch McConnell nearby. "Yeah," McConnell said. "Mr. Maitland, come on in. The mood is friendly here." I glanced at Myra, and she nodded. It could be fun. I thought you preferred older company, but that's all right. Some of those younger women probably have their own plans. They're quite young, I admitted. True, but they have a certain appeal. As we walked over, one of the young women playfully moved closer to McConnell. I noticed Deal's companion, who seemed to have caught his attention. I assume you chatted with her about local laws? I asked Deal. He smiled widely and replied, Yes, and I mentioned we might have some fun later. She smiled back, clearly enjoying the conversation. When we sat down, the yacht owner stood up and offered his hand to Myra. Miss, we haven't met yet. I am Lucio Bianchi. Who do I have the pleasure of meeting? Myra. This is Mr. Bianchi, who owns a yacht that drew some attention today before our friends from Satsuma arrived. Oh, do you really own a yacht, Mr. Bianchi? He nodded and waved his hand casually. Yes, but it's mostly for tax reasons. I sailed during college at San Diego, and my second wife encouraged me to buy it. I don't use it much, but I had business in Miami. I thought it would be nice to sail it back with some sailors for their help to Norfolk, where I'll let a professional sail it back to Naples, where I keep it. The sail is a nice little reward for Caprice and her friends. Caprice, sitting close to Deal, said, Mr. Maitland, Barry was telling us about the cowboys that came after you and how he and Mitch helped you and the old man. You must be proud to know such a hero. Yeah, he sure talks a big game, I replied with a smile. As we settled in, Bianchi sat beside Myra, and the waitress came to take our orders. Myra looked at the girls and asked, So what do you do, and are these young women working for you? He smiled at her and then glanced at the young women, who had put on sweaters and tights to keep warm. Not what you might think, Senora. Caprice is the youngest at 19, Giada is 21, Eloisa is 24, and Gisela, pointing to a lively young woman chatting with McConnell, is the oldest at 26. Their job is to look youthful. They are all professional models. They usually work in Italy, Rome, Naples, Genoa, and Milan. But I had a project in Miami, and they were excited to work here. You manage models? I asked, looking at the group. The two girls who weren't with Deal and McConnell were attracting many curious looks from single men at the bar and were glancing back at them with interest. It must be a tough life, but I guess someone has to do it, right? No, Signore Maitland, Bianchi replied, still unable to look away from Myra. I work in film production, mainly commercials. I thought I would become the next Fellini, but then I realized there is only one of him. Instead, I discovered I have a talent for visuals, and I make a good living producing commercials and some music videos. He turned his attention back to Myra. Signorina Martinez, have you ever considered modeling? I find it hard to believe you haven't. She gave him a teasing look, a small smile on her lips, and asked, And what makes you think that, Signore? He waved a hand in her direction. How could you not, to be honest? You are, how should I put it, remarkable. I hope I'm not offending you, Signore Maitland. But unless you're unaware, I think you already know that. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Please don't take this the wrong way, Signorina, but there is something about you that feels familiar. Have you done any modeling or commercial work elsewhere? She shook her head. I'm not the only woman with a lovely figure in the world, Signore. Then she turned to me and said, Why don't you order for us, Bill? I'll have a tequila and a small salad. Ask them if they know what green lime shrimp ceviche is. If they don't, I'll take a small black beans and corn salad instead. Once the waitress took our order to the kitchen, a few minutes passed before the chef, a short man with a bit of stubble on his face, came to our table. Who ordered the green lime shrimp ceviche? She smiled at him. I did. Do you serve it? Not normally, but I used to make it when I worked in Mexico City. I can prepare it now if you'll give me a few moments. May I ask if you've had it before and where? On a yacht off the Mexican Riviera. A friend arranged a special dinner, she replied. I loved it. He had great taste in everything. Thank you. Do you have about 30 minutes? It might be tough, but I'll manage. We have the time, I replied. While we waited, I enjoyed a drink with lime and salt on the rim, which reminded me of the bon chance day that felt so long ago, even though it had only been 6 months. Deal was talking a lot and doing his best to handle a tricky situation. McConnell seemed to be getting a bit carried away with his date, and it looked like they were having too much fun. Bianchi and I talked about movies and ads, but he was mostly focused on Myra. I couldn't blame him. Myra was really interesting. She wasn't doing anything wrong, but there was a special energy at the table. I had been in that situation many times. If I couldn't handle attention on my partner, we probably wouldn't have gone out. A three-man band set up, and the waiters cleared a spot in front of the bar. They played some lively music, and soon the first couples were out dancing, adding to the festive mood. Before long, Deal and Caprice had disappeared, and I noticed McConnell and Gisela had joined the dancing. The small dance floor became crowded, and people were bumping into each other. Giada and Eloisa were soon dancing with a few young men. Some couples were also dancing on the patio overlooking the St. Johns River. The music was contagious. Bianchi tapped my hand on the table. Raising his voice to be heard over the music, he said, "Mr. Maitland, would it bother you if I took your lady for a dance, if she's willing?" He was a good-looking guy who owned a yacht and clearly liked Myra. I had little skill in this type of dancing, and Myra was already gently swaying in her seat to the beat. I knew she wouldn't ask if she thought I didn't want her to dance, and it was clear she wanted to. Of course, if Myra wants to dance, go ahead. She leaned over and gave me a friendly kiss on the cheek, saying, "I'll be thinking of this." Words escape me when I try to explain how graceful and lively she was on the dance floor. She caught a lot of attention. Bianchi had to adjust himself a few times as he watched her dance, needing to steady himself at moments. But he kept his cool. She was smiling and laughing, enjoying herself, and many others were enjoying watching her too. Soon after, a waiter brought a platter of lemon shrimp ceviche to our table. During a short break in the music, Myra and Bianchi returned. Before they got back, three guys looking like they could be athletes approached them. "Too soon to sit down, pretty lady," a tall blonde said. "Stay out for one more round and we'll treat you at our table. You're too interesting to waste your time here," one man said. "The lady is returning to our table," Bianchi replied. "She has something special waiting for her." With a small movement, a dark-haired man stepped in and added, "She has something special waiting at our table." "What do you think, sweetie? You'll have a much better time with us. We can take care of anything you need." "What I want is for you to move and let us go back to our table and our friends," she responded firmly. "You have no idea what's waiting for you, so here's a little taste," the blonde said, leaning in and trying to grab her. As people noticed the tension, things got heated. Myra pushed him back forcefully. "I don't like anyone touching me without my permission," she declared, giving him a fierce look. "If you come at me again, you'll see how I react." The dark-haired man reached for her again, but she skillfully dodged and stepped away, showing her strength. Nearby guys groaned, feeling for him as he sank to the floor. Another dark-haired man pushed Bianchi back against the table. Thor, blood on his face, glared at Myra and raised his fist, moving toward her. "You terrible person!" As he prepared to hit her, I stepped in, trying to grab his hand and flip him over my hip. I aimed to knock him down, but he was bigger and stronger, almost throwing me aside. I managed to avoid hitting Myra and crashed into our table. I knew he still wanted to get to Myra, so I quickly bumped my side and knocked over a couple of bowls. I charged at him, planning to duck under his punch and hit him in the stomach if I could get behind him. I blocked his right, but then unexpectedly his left came at me, and I found myself under the table. My left eye hurt as I tried to regroup and get to Myra. She looked worried as Thor loomed up behind her. Suddenly, Deal stepped in, showing his badge. "Stop, freeze." The brunette turned Deal around and confronted him. He showed his badge clipped to his belt. "Back off. I'm a police officer. Tell someone who cares." "You should care." The brunette glanced at McConnell, who had a small gun ready. The sound of him preparing the weapon broke the tense silence. "You don't have the guts to use that," she mocked. "He's a cop. I used to be a cop. I work for the state attorney. That guy you pushed is an important prosecutor. The woman is linked to him." Deal turned to keep an eye on Thor, who had taken a step forward. He was trained to aim for the center, but he pointed the gun at Thor's face. "If anyone gets hurt, there will be serious consequences," he warned, never breaking his gaze from Thor. "It won't be easy for you in prison." "Feeling scared, little man?" Thor taunted. "If you don't take me down, I'll take that away from you. My friends will make you regret it. And then I'm taking her away from here to show her what she's missing." The big man, who had been bent over, slowly stood up straight. He was huge, nearly 7 feet tall and well over 300 pounds. He looked around and spotted Myra, who seemed small next to the big figures on the dance floor. He started moving toward her. I managed to get to my feet even though my head was spinning. I placed myself between them, but so far she had been better at defending herself than I had. Suddenly, the big man stopped, standing very still. His two friends noticed and looked at him, puzzled by his behavior. A tall, thin man with dark hair appeared from behind him. I recognized him, though I wasn't sure from where. He was much smaller than the large man who towered over him. "What's happening, John?" one of the other men asked, looking back and forth between McConnell and the big man. The large man seemed to want to say something, but it was the smaller man behind him who spoke gently. "Take it easy now. Do you have a family?" The large man shook his head. "Do you ever want a family?" When the big man stayed quiet, the thin man continued, his voice steady in the silence. "If you think you might want that chance someday, nod, or it could be gone forever." The large man nodded slightly. Thor, who had been watching, turned toward them and muttered, "What's going on?" The thin man stepped forward, and although I couldn't see what he held, Thor stopped moving. The man smiled slightly and said, "Looks like we have some big guys, and a few smaller ones with more than just words. What do you think happens next, friend?" I shifted a bit and could now see what looked like an object pointed at the big man. There was a tense silence. "Everyone freeze." I looked toward the patio entrance. Officer Wilkes stood there, steady and focused on the group in the center of the room. "Nobody move. Put your weapons on the floor now. Backup is on the way, and I can have more officers here in minutes. Drop the weapons and step back." Deal held his badge high above his head. "I'm off duty, officer. My friend here is a state attorney investigator, authorized to carry." Wilkes scanned the room and paused when he saw Myra. "You may be, but I still want your hands where I can see them. Everyone, please step back." Nobody moved until my colleagues arrived. He spoke into the radio on his shoulder. "Davis, Hunter, the Mexican rose now. We have a situation." Davis and Hunter came in from the side. The thin man and McConnell raised their hands while Hunter, the senior officer, spoke briefly with Wilkes and then motioned for Deal to join them. The three officers talked as Deal tucked his weapon under his jacket. Deal pointed to Myra, me, McConnell, and our table. Hunter, a tall officer in his 40s, approached me. He checked my injuries and gently tilted my head to see my left eye. "Mr. Maitland, do you need to go to the hospital?" "It hurts quite a bit, but I can still see. I'd rather stay here." McConnell, having secured his firearm, came over. "Are you all right, Maitland? We would have acted faster if we had seen everything earlier." "What happened, Maitland?" Hunter asked. I quickly explained while he checked on Myra, who moved closer and reached for me. "Oh, Bill, I'm sorry. Should I call for help?" "I want to stay here with you. Can you help me feel better?" "Of course, Bill. You were very brave. Those people were terrible." "I'll make sure you're with me if I ever face trouble again. You're really strong." Remember when I said nobody would treat me badly? I meant it. Normally I'd have pepper spray for these situations, but I had to rely on what I had tonight. "Are you all right, Miss Martinez?" Hunter asked, keeping a professional tone. "I'm fine, officer," she replied, looking at Wilkes. "I'm just glad Officer Wilkes showed up when he did. It could have been worse." "I guess you two will need to write reports on this," Deal commented with a sigh. "McConnell and I will be busy doing paperwork all night." He looked at a nearby vehicle, disappointment on his face, as if he wanted a more thrilling outcome than just forms to fill out. A tall man came over and handed us his business card. "Gentlemen, may I speak with you for a moment?" "This is a police matter, sir," Hunter said. "We're still looking into it, and it will take some time." "I'll be happy to talk later," Hunter added. The man handed the card to Hunter and then, noticing my face, gave me another card. "Cyrus Bold, owner-operator Worldwide Wrestling Entertainment." I didn't watch it that often, but I had heard of Vince McMahon's WWE, which came to Jacksonville and its Veterans Coliseum regularly. "You're with that WWE? These guys are pro wrestlers?" I asked. Hunter caught on to it too. "No, not that WWE." Bold smiled brightly, almost overwhelming. "We're not that large yet. We mainly operate in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, what they call the Gulf Circuit. But yes, my team here, my enthusiastic employees, are professional wrestlers. We have a performance at the National Guard Armory on Normandy tomorrow night." "Mr. Bold, Officer Hunter is in charge here and some higher-ups might show up soon. I'm a prosecutor with the state attorney's office, and I can tell you that your group might face serious charges related to an attack on Miss Martinez and me, nearly causing a commotion, damaging property, and other charges. Bold looked at Myra, then at Hunter, and finally at me. He then took out a thick wallet. Mr. Maitland, Bill Maitland. Mr. Maitland, I assume there were no major injuries apart from that bruise on your face. If you need medical help, I can give you cash and leave my card with you. I'll cover any costs from this incident. If Miss Martinez needs care, and she seems fine, I'll take care of that too. He glanced at the table behind us. I will pay for your meals and replace anything lost. I'll also speak with the management if they had any losses. Turning back to Hunter, he said, Officer, it seems no one was seriously hurt or suffered much damage, and I'll make sure everything is sorted. My performers are set to be here tomorrow and Sunday night, and they are essential to the show. I know you could take them in, but all we really have is a minor disagreement among a few excited people. If you could just give them a warning, I would greatly appreciate it. Since no one was hurt badly and the damage isn't significant, I could let them go, but it depends on Miss Martinez and Mr. Maitland. If they want to file charges, I'll have to take action. Hunter looked at me. I'm fine with letting them go as long as everything is paid for. When he looked at Myra, she said, I will drop this if I get apologies from all three of them. Bold just looked at them. The three men lined up in front of her. I'm Harry Goldfinger, Thor said. That's my real name. I wrestle under the name Thor the Mighty. I apologize. I usually don't act that way. I drank too much, and watching you perform was very impressive. I'm truly sorry. Rubbing his lip, he added, I'm sorry, I learned not to try to kiss someone who doesn't want that. But you are remarkable, and if you ever wore a wrestling outfit, you could fill any arena in the country. Have you thought about joining wrestling? He glanced at Bold, who was looking at Myra. Harry isn't the best with words, but he means what he says. A woman with your talent could earn good money in this field. No, she replied. I have a job. The large man said, I'm John Smith, wrestling as King Grizzly. Like Harry, I'm sorry. I have a girlfriend, and if she finds out about this, she'll be upset. But seeing you out there, I forgot everything. I usually don't get involved like this. The third wrestler, who was also quite large, stepped forward and offered his hand. After a moment, Myra shook it. I'm Perry Benning. I wrestle as Killer Grizzly. John and I are the Grizzlies. I hope you can forgive us. This isn't how we usually act. Harry studied accounting. John has a master's in English literature, and I'm a dentist. We just needed to unwind a bit. We've been traveling for 4 months, and I haven't seen my wife and son in 2 months. Sometimes we just need to relax. Bold made a gesture, and the three wrestlers walked away. John Smith was still limping and stopped to talk to Bold. I think I might be hurt and need to go to the hospital. Just use ice and take it easy. If you hadn't chosen to go out after being told not to, you wouldn't feel this way. You have matches tomorrow and Sunday, or you won't earn anything this weekend. Tough it out. After they left, drawing attention from others in the bar, Bold turned back to us. Officer Hunter, thank you. Maitland, are you sure you don't want any money for a trip to the hospital? He added, I'll pay for any damage and order new meals for everyone. By the way, does anyone want free tickets to the show tomorrow or Sunday? He ended up giving free passes to Deal, McConnell, and 2 police officers, including Wilkes. I looked at McConnell, but he just shrugged. What can I say, Maitland? I enjoy wrestling. I want to see how it's done in a staged setting. Once they were gone, Deal approached Hunter and said, Thanks. I really didn't want to spend the night writing reports. I understand, he replied, glancing at Caprice, who had stayed close to Deal. He then looked at a dark-haired man involved in the earlier situation. The man stood quietly while Officer Davis took his weapon. Both Wilkes and Davis still had their service weapons out. Hunter motioned and walked over to the man casually. All right, both Officer Deal and Investigator McConnell have permits to carry. I don't know you, and if you don't have a permit and a good reason for drawing your weapon during this disturbance, I'm afraid I'll have to take you with me. Who are you? I recognized him now. He was much thinner than I remembered and had aged 7 years. His hair was dark but had a few gray strands. He wasn't that old, but 7 years can change a person. Why don't you ask Mr. Maitland? He then smiled at me, and it was the same familiar smile. Good to see you, Bill. I read some of the online stories, but it's not the same as seeing you in person. You look much better than the last time I saw you. I'm Anderson, Richard Anderson. The officer moving through the crowd was someone I recognized. Dave Hammer was the beat sergeant who had taken over for Bart Jenner during the night shift in downtown. He was in his early 40s and had worked with the department for 15 years. He walked straight to Anderson and held out his hand. Anderson shook it. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Anderson." Then he turned to Davis. "Return his weapon to him, now." He waited until Anderson put it back in a holster under his coat, then signaled for Anderson to follow him to Hunter. Hunter filled him in on what had happened while he assessed us. "Looks like the excitement is over. Nobody got seriously hurt, and there's not much damage. Everything is under control now. You can head out." Hunter pointed to Anderson and asked, "But what about—" "How long have you been with the department, Hunter?" 5 years. "Where did you come from?" "L.A. You should have heard of him. Richard Anderson and the gunfight on 4th Street. Does that sound familiar?" After a moment, understanding crossed Hunter's face. "That's him?" "In person," Anderson said with a friendly smile. "But 7 years is a long time. I doubt many remember. McConnell and Deal got it first, followed by Davis and Wilkes, who looked at him in amazement. "You're the Richard Anderson?" "Yeah." As everyone, whether they knew him or not, stared at him, he stepped forward, gave Myra a warm look, and extended his hand. I took it. "What brings you to town, Richard? Working on a new movie?" "No. Maybe some commercial work or a documentary. I decided to stop at the landing for a few drinks for old time's sake, and who do I find but the busiest person in the state attorney's office? And the most interesting company in town. What's your secret? The last time I saw you, you were with that blonde, what was her name? And now I see you with someone else. You seem to enjoy a little adventure. I remember your wife was quite strong. She could definitely stand her ground if things got tough." "That was my wife. We divorced earlier this year." "I'm sorry to hear that. I wasn't aware. Divorce can be difficult. I've been through this 3 times in 6 years, and I still don't completely understand it." Bianchi offered to get some chairs, and after a little convincing, Anderson agreed to sit for a few minutes, stopping first to give autographs to Wilkes, Davis, Hunter, and Hammer. As waiters rushed to refill drinks and brought Myra's lemon shrimp ceviche, our table buzzed with different conversations, blending with the sound of the band warming up to play again. "Your name sounds familiar, but I can't remember where I know you from," Myra said. "You came here a couple of years after Richard became well-known," I replied. "You tell the story, Bill. You were here," she encouraged. The chatter faded as everyone turned their attention to Anderson and me. It was a Thursday in September 1998. Richard was covering the police beat at the TU, sharing the job with Carl Cameron. He was with a police officer to write a story about women in law enforcement due to some recent issues. The sheriff wanted to highlight a good female officer who was happily married to a male officer to help improve the department's image. "I was given that assignment," Anderson said, "and I was paired with Suzanne Bates, a respected officer. Her husband was quite strong, which made me a bit nervous. We started our ride downtown and were having a nice time. She was friendly, and I think she enjoyed the company. I thought it would be just another routine assignment. Then they reported a bank robbery, and sadly, there were injuries. They were headed our way. Suzanne dashed to intercept them, and we met at Main and 8th. 2 other police cars joined the pursuit, but these individuals were dangerous and aimed directly at the police vehicles, causing a lot of damage. Myra took a bite of her food while the rest of us sipped our drinks. I had another tequila sour. Everyone was focused on Anderson, but we kept following them. They drove recklessly, endangering pedestrians and other cars at speeds over 110 miles per hour, but Suzanne was determined. I worried for our safety many times, but she wouldn't slow down, even when help was on the way. He lifted his mug of tequila that Bianchi had ordered for him. I didn't realize until later that her husband was part of the team initially sent to handle the robbery. He was in a patrol car, and when they called in about an officer down, she knew it had to be him. That's why she kept pushing forward. We chased them to 4th Street, where they suddenly turned onto a dead-end street and crashed into a liquor store. Suzanne quickly blocked their escape, but their vehicles stalled. We sat there in silence for what felt like 10 or 15 seconds. Suzanne quietly stepped out, using the cruiser for cover, and took a shotgun from the trunk. She came back and sat next to me, loading shells while keeping an eye on the alley. Then she put her handgun on the seat next to her and said, "You can leave before things get worse, Richard. It's not worth it." I still wanted to impress her, so I replied, "What, and miss the excitement?" He looked out at the Jacksonville skyline beyond the rows. It was a strange sound. If you've never heard it, you wouldn't know what it was. It sounded like something breaking. I heard a rifle shot and the sound of glass breaking around me. In moments like that, it feels like time stops. I could feel something warm on me and wondered about my injuries. Then I looked at Suzanne. She was slumped against her door. It was clear something bad had happened to her. I reacted quickly, leaning down and reaching for my .45 Colt. I hadn't mentioned that my stepfather, a retired Army veteran, had taught me to handle guns from a young age. I had chosen to avoid military life, but I brought my .45 to impress Suzanne at the firing range. As I crouched low, I heard 4 people in the car at the end of the alley start to get out. The leader with a weapon shouted at me, "Hey, we know the officer is out. You don't look like one of them. We need that cruiser. You have a choice. Step out, and we'll let you walk away. Get in our way, and you'll regret it." I wasn't thinking. I just remember looking at Suzanne and recalling the way she had smiled at me and the color of her eyes. I couldn't forget her alive. I decided there was no way those people would leave after hurting her. I slipped out and stood in the alley. I had her Glock in one hand and my Colt, .45 in the other. I looked at them, and they looked back at me surprised. "You gave me a choice," I said. "I'll give you one. Lower your weapons and leave with your hands up, or leave here with a memory you won't forget." There was no one else in the alley but us. I thought it was too bad there were no witnesses. I was preparing to face the consequences, and no one would know the most important thing I'd ever said. And then they came at me. The whole table was quiet until I spoke up. And when it was over about 45 seconds later, as best anyone could tell, all 4 were down in the alley, while Mr. Anderson took 5 hits himself. He smiled at me when I finished. I could tell he'd heard this story many times, but if I'd been him, I wouldn't mind hearing it again. Which would have been a great story, but what made our friend famous was that the owner of the bar was inside when it happened, with her 9-year-old daughter. They had peeked outside, the little girl did, even though her mother tried to keep her down. When local news reporters were covering the story, she mentioned Anderson's quote about keeping your hands up. It spread quickly, first nationwide and then internationally. "When I woke up after surgery 2 nights later," Anderson said, finishing his drink, "a nurse moved my bed by the window so I could see outside. There were police officers standing in pairs all around the hospital, shining their flashlights into the dark. They told me officers came from as far away as Virginia to help. It was a strange feeling. I'd never seen anything like it." "And that's the story," I said to Myra, leaning closer because I noticed she seemed interested. I didn't want her to be distracted by Richard, who was charming, and had made a good impression before he left for Hollywood. She looked at him, then back at me, and understood. She leaned against me and whispered, "You're my hero, Maitland. Don't forget that." Bianchi chimed in, "I think I've seen a movie about that event." "There were 2, Anderson replied. "There was a quick TV movie on CBS that year and a theatrical release in '99 with Kevin Costner. It did well at the box office, and I got a few leads in some smaller films after that, but those didn't go far." Giada approached and placed her hand on Anderson's shoulder. "You were in Gangs of New York with Leonardo DiCaprio, right?" He smiled modestly, but seemed happy. "You have a good eye." "Yes, I had a short part in that movie. I've done some work here and there, but I'm still waiting for my big break." At that moment, the group got caught up discussing Hollywood movies and news about famous people. Anderson's storytelling kept Deal and McConnell engaged. I enjoyed watching and listening. I sat back, helping Myra enjoy the lemon shrimp cerveza, while Anderson entertained everyone with stories after a second round of drinks. I noticed 2 young women in stylish clothes had come up behind him, hanging on to his every word. He finally noticed and turned around. The more confident of the 2 reached out to touch his shoulder and leaned in a little. "Mr. Anderson, I didn't want to interrupt, but my friend Janine and I'm Darlene, have been fans of yours since your time in Jacksonville. We'd love to talk, but it's quite loud here. Would you like to join us somewhere quieter for a drink?" I'm staying at the Omni a few blocks from here. If you'd like a chance to relax, I'd be happy to have you. We'd love that, she replied. He looked back at the table and said, It's been great talking to you, but you know how it is in this business. You have to take care of your fans. He reached over to shake my hand. I'm probably leaving tomorrow or Sunday, Bill, but if you can come by, I'd really like to see you before I go. I couldn't help but smile. I'll try to come by before you leave, but probably not tonight. I wouldn't want to interrupt your time with your loyal fans. You're welcome to come by tonight, Bill. There's a saying, the more, the merrier. I chose not to respond to that. When he had left with his friends, Myra leaned over and whispered to me, Good answer. Bianchi looked around the table. The atmosphere was lively, full of excitement. Ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone who would like to join me on my yacht? I can let the crew have the night off, and we can enjoy some drinks in the evening together. There are private cabins for anyone who would like some quiet. McConnell and Deal stood up with their dates and headed outside before he finished speaking. The other girls exchanged looks, then grabbed Bianchi by both hands and pulled him to his feet. There were clear benefits to being a wealthy yacht owner involved in the modeling business. He slipped his hands free and said something in Italian, likely a playful remark. They left the restaurant, drawing attention from others. Bianchi looked back at Myra. Miss Martinez, I hope I'm not being forward, but could I ask for your number one last time? There are great opportunities for someone with your look in several well-paid modeling and photography jobs. I can assure you that everything is professional and safe. My models will tell you that I take good care of them. He peeked at me cautiously, sensing that I might be a challenge, and then looked back at Myra. To be honest, it's rare for someone in my field to meet a woman with your beauty, intelligence, and something special about you. You truly stand out. She took a sip of her wine. Please, give me a piece of paper. He pulled out a piece of fine paper and a shiny pen. She wrote down her number. Then he handed her a fancy phone. She entered her number into it as well. Bianchi took it back, stood up, and bowed slightly. If you don't mind, signorina, he said, and quickly took a photo of her with the phone. Just to remember you for future opportunities. Words can't fully capture how great you are. After he left, paying a big bill and leaving a nice tip that made the servers smile, Myra turned to face me. You didn't want to join your friends on their yacht? I think I'm past that point in my life. It seems like there will be a lot happening out there tonight. Honestly, I think I'll be lucky to keep up with you. She leaned in closer, reminding me of our bond. I held her hand. I appreciate this, but I think we should leave here soon, and I can't believe it, but you've already got me feeling a bit distracted twice tonight. She squeezed my hand gently. But you don't have many options with me tonight, Bill. If you went with those young ladies, you'd have had more choices. Please don't be upset, but I'd prefer spending time with you tonight over anything I could imagine with them. She sighed. I'll let it slide this time. But how did you avoid getting serious before meeting Debbie? You seem like a romantic, Bill. I bet you were like that when you were 18. With what most women deal with early on, those who don't remember your name after a brief meeting, those only focused on looks, you must have been quite different. You're sweet, Myra. But even if a short, average-looking guy has a good heart, women at any age often seem to look for things like looks, height, wealth, and charm first. I didn't have any of those. Women aren't that shallow. I can't be the judge of that. In my experience, until I met Debbie, many seemed to be focused on those things. I still don't know why she picked me. There are many women who might say the same about men, probably for the same reasons. I took a moment to admire her beauty, then turned slightly to show my feelings. Let's agree to disagree on which gender cares more about appearances and just say I'm one of the luckiest guys around. I don't know what you see in me, but I'm really glad you do. We stepped outside onto the deck of the Rose. Rock music flowed through the night from the pavilion. From here, the music blended into the background, and as we walked along the riverfront, a soothing silence surrounded us. The cool evening air welcomed her into my embrace as we strolled together. Moving leisurely away from the courthouse toward the historic federal building, it felt like we had left the city's noise behind. As we walked, looking out at the river and the occasional yachts moving toward the St. John's exit into the Atlantic, I became lost in a troubling thought that I could not grasp. It had been a hectic day and my mind was full, yet it felt like there was something important I needed to remember, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Penny for your thoughts? I looked down and saw her smile. It felt nice to be sharing this moment with her. I had admired Debbie my whole life. I had cared for her deeply. It was only a small difference in height, but it was there. For a brief time, I even thought about getting shoes to make me taller. But she would have noticed, and knowing it mattered to me would have made our height gap feel bigger than it was. It would have made me feel less equal to her, something I often felt anyway. Tell me it doesn't matter. Tell me many men have happy relationships with women who are taller. Tell me love comes from the heart, not from how tall you are. Tell me that. I had told myself this many times over 20 years, yet it never really went away. Now, looking down at the lovely woman who stood just high enough that I could lean in a bit, it felt right to hold her. I felt like a man should feel with someone special, even if it was just for a short time. Even knowing what might happen later tonight, her smile warmed me more than any thought of closeness. She had that kind of beauty where, at first glance, you can hardly believe she is real. With her perfect features, hair, lips, and eyes, she seemed too good to also be genuinely kind. Women who looked like her often weren't. Thinking about how much nicer your warm apartment would be than this chilly sidewalk that keeps getting colder? Just thinking about the temperature difference? Maybe a little about what might happen later at your place. She shook her head playfully. Just another man with his thoughts all over, and I thought you liked me for my mind. I do love your mind. It's so sharp and full of ideas. Ow! I said this after she playfully poked me in the shoulder. Truce. I don't want to mess with you after seeing how you handled those guys at the Rose earlier. I was just joking. I won't hurt you if you tell me what you were really thinking. You looked lost in thought for a while. We had walked far enough from the landing to reach a concrete area by the river. It was a covered spot where you could stand far from the shore and look north and south along the water. A couple of younger people were leaving the area as we stepped onto it. Teenagers were linked together, laughing and listening to music. At the far end, an older couple looked south at the shining Acosta Bridge and the FEC Railroad Bridge, which was just coming down after letting a tall sailing ship pass. They also admired the longer Fuller Warren Bridge. The bright Christmas bridges offered a stunning view of the city. We walked to a spot facing the Riverwalk on the other side of the St. John's. I've been thinking about a lot of things, Myra, mostly about us. She gave me a curious look. You know what first drew me to you. Just a typical guy, I guess. I noticed you right away, and over time I realized you're smart, funny, and don't even see how wonderful you are. I felt mixed about my feelings because, aside from being married, I believed some stories about you and Dallas. Plus, he's my boss and friend. Thinking about you that way bothered me. And? It's not a mystery why I found you interesting. What I can't figure out is why you were ever interested in me. Didn't we talk about this before? No, this isn't about feeling sorry for myself. I know you were curious about me when you learned what was happening with me and Debbie. Maybe I started to seem better, and I definitely feel more sure of myself now. But I still don't think I'm the kind of guy you usually go for. I always felt you were interested in me, wanted to know me, but I thought it was just my imagination. I wanted it to be true, but it didn't seem possible. Plus, I know that just looking better wouldn't be enough to impress you. So, strangely enough, maybe you started seeing me as a man even when I wasn't at my best. I just don't get that. She lightly touched her lips, maybe from the cool breeze or in a playful way. So you think, Mr. Maitland, that women only find certain types attractive and can't be drawn to someone because of traits like kindness and honesty? I looked into her green eyes, and despite her serious expression, I couldn't help but smile as I said, Actually, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. That's something only a woman could know. She tried to hold back a smile but couldn't help herself. Okay. I might have been a bit over the top, but women don't think like men. Thank goodness. Exactly. But it's true. Women often make connections differently than men do and can develop feelings for someone even if they don't fit the usual standards of attraction. Of course, good looks help, but women can be attracted to many other things. Like a little extra weight and thinning hair? Like, She turned away from me, gazing at the dark water, leaning slightly against me. I instinctively held her close. I noticed you in Dallas's office during my first week here. You tried to hide your attention, and it felt a bit odd. But Dallas said you were very dedicated to your marriage, and I saw you try to treat me like anyone else. The women in the courthouse started calling you the Iceman. In those early months, I heard how people spoke about you, how Dallas talked about you, and I saw you in a few trials. I could tell right away that you were not just any lawyer. You weren't just putting in hours. I started to admire your commitment to your work. Back then, I didn't know your marriage was having problems. She leaned back and shivered. I thought it was just the cold wind from the river. But my thoughts about you changed during the Welaka cannibal trial. I was in the witness area when the jury said he was guilty. I remember Charlie Case standing behind him when the foreman read the verdict. I saw the defendant jump up, upset. Case tried to hold him steady. Case told me later that he wasn't scared, but he admitted it shook him a bit. I remember the defendant pointing at you from behind the prosecution table. The tension in the courtroom was thick, and I watched you walk over to where Case was holding the defendant. I didn't think the defendant could break away from Case. But then I heard him make a threatening remark towards you. I saw you say something quietly that only Case and the defendant could hear. Then you smiled, and Case looked pleased. I always wondered what you told him. I think that was when I truly started to notice you. She turned in my arms and looked into my eyes. When she pulled away, I said, I told him that if he ever got out, even if I was 120 and still here, I'd be up for a meeting anywhere. I don't think he got the joke. She raised a hand and brushed my jawline softly. And I realized I was really drawn to you the day the jury delivered their verdict on the toddler torture and murder case about a year later. I watched you as the jury found the foster mother guilty. You showed no reaction. I wondered how anyone could remain so calm in such a moment. I returned to Dallas's office, and he mentioned he tried to reach you at your office, but you weren't answering, and neither was your secretary. I went downstairs, and your office door was open. I saw you looking out the window, lost in thought. I returned to Dallas and told him you needed a moment and would be free soon. I didn't share what I saw, but I never forgot it. I just couldn't understand how someone could be so composed when facing a threat but also be troubled by the loss of a child. You really caught my attention, Mr. Maitland. The more I got to know you, the more I wanted to learn about you. I recalled both afternoons, even though I didn't know she had noticed them. I thought I could handle the toddler case. It was tough, but I managed until I got back to my office. I came across photos of BJ and Kelly when they were around the same age as the toddler. I looked at BJ and imagined how difficult those last weeks must have been for that little boy facing challenges he couldn't understand. And then I just broke down. She leaned against my shoulder. Mr. Maitland, that's what won me over. You are the kind of person who stands up to those who do wrong and shows kindness to those who need help. We began to walk the long way back to my car and her apartment. An older man and woman sat on the other side of the pavilion, watching the couple stroll down the sidewalk. Suddenly, the old couple seemed to straighten up. There was no one nearby to notice the faint shine of moonlight on a distant object. As the young couple moved away, the older woman, looking a bit younger, seemed ready to follow. The man gently shook his head and said something softly that only she could hear. After a moment, the older couple turned and left the pavilion, walking away from the lights. Moonlight revealed only their simple clothes. After a while, the woman took the man's hand, and they walked side by side in silence. A teenager sat in a shadowy corner near the sidewalk, hoping to get closer to the girl resting in his arms. He thought if he could connect with her more, the night might feel better. He was quiet, but then he noticed the old couple passing by. Watching them move along was a bit sad, but their hand-holding was sweet. He nudged his girl, and she looked up at him, smiling. It was just the response he wanted. She leaned into him, feeling safe. While he focused on her, he continued to glance at the old couple. There was something interesting about them. Maybe he had watched too many movies lately. They were just a couple of older folks. The girl didn't notice, her head tucked against him, but the old man paused and seemed to look right into the darkness, meeting the boy's eyes. The boy held his breath for a moment. How could the old man see them clearly in the shadows? But he did. Soon, the man turned his gaze back to the sidewalk, and the couple moved on. The boy tried to bring back the mood, but he found it difficult. Finally, he stood up and gently pulled the girl with him. She grumbled a bit, but he led her away from the river, back to where there were more lights and people. November 12th, 2005. Friday, 11 p.m. We reached the car and I turned on the heat. We sat in the quiet, letting the warmth make us feel comfortable. The stillness between us felt meaningful. We didn't need to talk. After a while, she leaned back in her seat, a small smile on her face. "You spoiled the surprise I had planned for you at my place. It's not the same now." "If you had something else planned, I might need a bit of time to get ready," I said, relaxing and enjoying the cozy atmosphere. "I have a few ideas to help you feel better," she replied playfully. "Let's see how you feel." Half an hour later, we drove through the gates to her apartment. Once inside, we found ourselves curled up on her couch, enjoying each other's presence. I didn't mean for it to happen, but things got a bit messy as our clothes got jumbled. She looked embarrassed and quickly went to the bathroom. 10 minutes later, she poked her head out. "I'm sorry, Bill. This was a bad idea. I hoped we could spend the night together, but I think that's not a good idea now. One of us might go too far, and I want to avoid any problems. Would you mind leaving?" "No, it was a nice evening. Honestly, I was thinking I might visit Anderson tonight if I can." "You're not going over to see his fans, are you?" "I don't think that would be helpful for me right now." "Would you stay here until I'm done? Then I'll let you out and lock up after you." While I could hear the shower running in the bathroom, I wandered around her apartment. I checked her fridge and saw it was filled with mostly healthy food and drinks. There weren't many pictures around. One photo showed her with a woman who looked a lot like her, probably her sister. Another picture had Myra, the sister, and a man in a Navy uniform. The last one was of Myra, her sister, and a younger woman with dark hair. Though not quite identical, they still shared a strong family resemblance. As I looked at the photos, the phone on the kitchen wall rang 3 times. Then I heard a voice say, "Myra, babe. I'll be in England working on the buyout next weekend, but I'll be back in New York by the 20th. I'll send you the tickets and I'll meet you at JFK. We'll be in Monte Carlo by the 21st, and I can't wait to see you. I hope you're just as excited. This is going to be a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'm really grateful for you." I stared at the phone, watching the red message light blink. A wave of worry washed over me. I couldn't take my eyes off it. My thoughts were all jumbled. It felt like I was moving in a daze, unsure of my next steps. I walked over to the granite island in the kitchen, turning the phone so the blinking light faced away. Now, it would be hard to see unless you walked around. I leaned against the cool surface, feeling the weight of the decision I had to make. I realized I was about to do something very unwise. I was about to let go of a chance at something beautiful with someone special. I had already lost Debbie because of my choices, thinking I was making the right ones. Now I was on the brink of losing a remarkable woman, perhaps the best I would ever meet, and I had no good reason to let this go. Yet I couldn't seem to stop myself. Memories of Paula Donnelly's honest words about my character came back to me from months ago, and they hurt because they were true. Debbie had also been straightforward with me, but it felt too late now. I knew myself well. I was smart, determined, and sometimes overly stubborn. I believed I was a decent person who tried to do the right thing. Since I had felt attraction, I had become drawn to certain ideals. I also had a frustration within me that I tried to hide. Career-wise, I had built a successful life for myself. But in personal moments, especially when it came to women, I felt inadequate. No matter how much I improved myself, I always seemed to come up short. I felt like I was always the second choice, the one people settled for. This realization hit me hard. A recent message had turned my world upside down, and I knew that with time, I would understand my life better. I moved into the den and sank into a comfortable chair, letting its support ease my mind. She walked out of her bathroom, her hair wrapped in a towel, wearing a cozy robe. She settled onto my lap, cuddling close. "I'm sorry you have to go tonight. We'll get together next week, and I'll make it up to you." "That sounds great. I paused, questioning myself. How did I end up here? "I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier. My mom has invited me to her home near Orlando for Thanksgiving. I haven't been there in a while. If you're free, I'd love for you to come with me. We can have dinner and explore Orlando, or even fly to Miami. Do you have any plans? She leaned back a bit, but she remained close, making it hard for me to look her in the eyes. I'm sorry, Bill. I thought you would have plans. I already told Valencia, my sister from Homestead, that I'd be spending Thanksgiving with her and her family. They moved to Norfolk a few years ago, and I haven't seen them much since then. If I had been thinking only of myself, I might have insisted on joining her, but I had learned what I needed to know. Well, I guessed I was asking too late. Enjoy your time with your family. I hope to meet them one day. I hope so too, Bill. I'll be thinking of you. I held back my uncertainty and smiled in response. She stood up and reached for my hand as I rose to meet her. She gave me a kind touch on my cheek. I know you'll want to spend time with your friend, Bill. Just take it easy. I pulled her close for a gentle moment of connection. I'm looking forward to our time together. November 12th, 2005, Friday, midnight. I chose to walk down the steps from Myra's condo rather than take the elevator. I felt restless, like I had too much nervous energy. I already knew my destination. Anderson was probably waiting at his suite in the Omni with a few people he had met that evening, but that wasn't why I wanted to see him. For some reason, I felt the urge to talk. My mind was in a whirl. I wasn't drunk or overly emotional. It felt like a storm of feelings, anger, jealousy, uncertainty, guilt was taking over. Thoughts about trials, enemies, friends, the past, and the future were swirling inside me. Maybe I should just go to Richard's suite, unwind and distract myself while he enjoyed his night. Staying aware might help me learn how to navigate my new life. Standing in the cold November darkness, one thing was clear. I couldn't go back to my old life. There would be no chance to fix things with Debbie. Aline was not coming back. Any connection I built with Myra would be different from anything I'd known before. Those 4 words from Debbie long ago had changed everything for me. As I stood there, something urged me to walk toward the back of the condo and the pool area. Maybe I just wasn't ready to be with others. Perhaps I needed the calmness of still water and shadows a moment to think about everything that had just happened. I stood at the edge of the deep pool, wishing I had something to occupy my hands. The moon peeked in and out of the clouds, casting reflections on the water, while my breath formed soft puffs that drifted into the chilly air. You're not going to spend the night with her? Did you have a disagreement? She sat in the shadows in a chair near the pool. A sudden flash of red light brightened the night as she exhaled a cloud of smoke. In that moment, I noticed she wore pants and a sweater with a UNLV towel draped over her shoulders. No, did you? Leo, my friend, was so drunk he couldn't even be there for me. What kind of boyfriend does that? He'd rather hang out with his friends than be with someone who cares about him. Were guys really this clueless when you were younger? Believe me, he'll feel sorry about it tomorrow. A lot of guys often miss what's important in life. It's sad, but we say we learn, and yet we often don't. We can stay unaware for a long time. That's pretty discouraging. Tell me about it. The cigarette glowed a few more times in the quiet. You don't seem clueless, but you're going to keep seeing her, right? That's my business. It's about her looks. Guys can be pretty simple. They don't bother me. She's my friend. You know there are some worries about her, right? No, I didn't know that. I've been here for 1.5 years, and I can't tell you how many guys have come and gone. She has had a lot of visitors. You might not have noticed, but she doesn't wear a wedding ring. She threw the blanket aside and moved to stand next to me by the edge of the deep pool. My dad makes independent films. He works all over the world, but he spends a lot of time in Hollywood. He has money. He sent me out here to help me stay focused. As long as I don't get into trouble and pretend to work on a college degree, I can enjoy a good life. He visited a couple of times when I first got here. The second time, she was in the lobby when we returned from dinner. He spent some time with her. I didn't see him for 2 days. He came to see me 3 more times over the next 3 months. I spent about 4 hours with him each time. She spent weekends with him and even went away for a week. When she got back, she had a beautiful emerald necklace, a costly gift from him. I saw the receipt in his bag. She wore it a few times, but when he stopped coming, it disappeared. I bet it's in some jewelry store right now, and I think she gets nice gifts from every guy she sees. She inhaled deeply, and I caught a faint smell of something unusual, but I didn't judge her at the moment. Like I said, Bill, she's not someone to trust easily. I hate to say this, but people give nice gifts to those they're interested in. Fancy things. I've done it myself, and I didn't see those women as untrustworthy. Honestly, if you haven't received something nice yet, I think you might one day, and it doesn't have to mean anything bad. She stared at me and asked, "What happened with you? Did you argue about her?" "No, just a misunderstanding at a bar. Just typical Friday night stuff. Boys." Then she said, "You like her more than you admit, don't you?" "No, I don't, Cassandra. You may think that, but you don't know me or her." She took one last puff and tossed the remains into the pool. "I know you, Bill. I'm young, sure, but I understand guys, and you're missing something about her. She's lovely, but she could cause some problems. She'll have to wait her turn. It's a long wait." I nearly reached out to offer a kind gesture, but held back. She wasn't Kelly. "Have a nice evening, Cassandra." "Good night, Bill. Wishing you the best." November 12th, 2005, Friday, 12:15 p.m. As I stepped off the elevator on the third floor of the Omni, I could hear music coming from one of the rooms. Passing another door, I caught the sound of laughter, followed by what might have been glass breaking. Well, that would keep the hotel staff busy. The hallway was quiet with soft carpet under my feet. A pleasant scent filled the air, maybe like pine or wood. I walked to the end of the corridor and turned left. Room 305 slid into 306 and 307, and finally, I reached 310. I listened and thought I heard some laughter and a faint shout. I knocked, then knocked again, and pressed the doorbell. "Hold on, I'll be there in a second." The door opened to reveal Richard Anderson with a friendly smile. "Sorry, Bill, don't take this the wrong way. You just interrupted me." "Very engaging, I'm sure. But can we focus on something else before it becomes a distraction?" "Of course," he said, smiling as he put on a robe. I took a seat in a comfy chair while he relaxed on the couch. A small coffee table sat between us as he shook my hand warmly. "I'm glad you came by, Bill. I wanted a moment to talk with you, but after seeing who you were with, I thought it might not happen. She had a lot on her mind, and sometimes it's good to take a break." "Oh, so you needed to escape? I get that. By the way, how do you manage it? You seem to always have interesting company. You are not exactly a famous person." "I suppose it's my good nature. It seems to work out." He chuckled. "It's nice to see you again, Maitland. I'd offer a hug, but—" I nodded toward the room behind him. "Maybe save that for another time." He shrugged, dismissing my comment. "I was busy, but sometimes things get a little wild. I see you are living life fully." "What's that mean?" Suddenly, a voice called from the bedroom, singing, "Ricky, Ricky, you need to come back. Things are getting chilly." Another voice chimed in, "Rick Kai, I need your magic touch. I'm feeling restless." I peeked past him. "Looks like your fans are waiting." He glanced back, a satisfied smile on his face. "They just want more and more. Believe it or not, they are teachers and want me to keep practicing." That's a twist. "But they are young and eager, so it's fun." "Look, Richard, I can see this is a busy time for you. I'll leave my number. Call me when you can." "I really need your help, Bill. It seems you still have some energy left. Why don't you come back and help me out for a bit?" I raised my hands in surrender. "I'm getting older, and I've had my share of excitement. I might regret this later, but I really just wanted to talk to you for a while. But go ahead. I won't be upset." He glanced toward the bedroom and sighed. "Believe it or not, this happens quite often. It's not hard to find people who want some attention. But how many chances do I get to chat with someone like you?" I couldn't help but laugh. "I guess it's true what they say about the rich and famous. They really are different." "They really are." He stood up and called out, "Girls, take a break. I need to talk to a friend for a bit. Enjoy your drinks and the treats. I'll be back soon." A moment later, the bedroom door opened, and two women stepped out, laughing happily. "Dickie, we miss you back here," said one playfully. "Come on, please. This is an old friend. You don't have to work tomorrow, right? No school on Saturday. We can have fun then. I'll give you some signed pictures, and if you're nice, maybe even some special ones." After some complaints, they walked back to the bedroom. Anderson looked back at me and said, "I was talking about a few cases of Coca-Cola I have in my room, right? My favorite drink." "Of course, I know you wouldn't do anything wrong." "Exactly." He chuckled and sank onto the couch, laughing hard. Why do I like a cheeky guy like you? You're just a bit jealous, Bill, but don't feel bad. I sometimes question how real this all is. He looked at the bedroom, then back at me. There was a time when I had to work hard just to get a date, and now it feels so easy. Fame can be strange. I smiled. Not exactly. He leaned in closer. Come on, Bill. I heard about your divorce. I'm really sorry. I could tell how much you cared. Yeah, Debbie. But that must have changed things for you. After being so committed for years, I bet you had some experiences after that. Not really. Why not? The short answer is that I was still in love with her. Even now, a part of me still is. I had a brief thing with a married woman, and now I think I might have played a part in her marriage ending. He leaned in and placed his hand over mine on the coffee table. Please don't make this awkward. A lot has changed, but some things haven't. Relax. I was just trying to be supportive. As for mistakes, you're not alone in that. I've been let go from 6 major movie projects in the last 7 years. Usually things went wrong because I showed up in bad shape. I have many financial troubles, about $20 million in debt last time I checked. I guess if I keep working, I might pay it off someday, maybe in the next century. I've had relationships with at least 1,000 women, I think. Before everything changed, I felt pretty good about my love life. I've been treated for various illnesses, but thankfully not for HIV. I've also been to treatment a few times for alcohol and drug use. I've been married 3 times. The longest was 8 months. I have 2 daughters. I last saw my oldest 3 years ago. I probably won't see her again. Her mother is an actress from a rich family. In court, her lawyers painted me as a troubled person, saying I had issues with drinking and drugs and couldn't keep a job. Because of my past, they said I was not fit to be around children. So that's my life. Oh, I should mention I've been involved in 3 well-known divorces. I just never learned how to manage my relationships. Good to know I'm not the only one who has messed up. He got up and returned with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. He poured some in each glass and handed one to me. It's free from the hotel. It's a little perk of being famous. I'm supposed to take pictures with the staff for their lobby. Everyone benefits. It was nice. I took a sip. Mixing champagne with tequila and a few other drinks probably wasn't a great idea, but luckily I usually handled alcohol well. I never got hangovers. I don't know why, but no matter how much I drank, I'd wake up feeling fine and clear-headed. Maybe when you face tough times, you also get some good things. I'm sorry to hear that, Richard. I had no idea. Don't feel too sorry for me. I made my own choices. I've seen and done things I wouldn't have otherwise because of those choices. Then he talked about a young actress I recognized from movies and beauty polls. She was stunning and reminded me of a younger Sophia Loren. I was lucky to spend time with her. It was a memorable experience. That's hard to believe. If it's true, I really envy you. A few years ago, I tried to keep a low profile to avoid some lawyers. I ended up in a small California town near the Oregon border called Eureka. I stayed in a decent motel with a pool. One summer day, I was swimming laps when a woman walked over and stepped into the pool. I tried not to stare for a few minutes, but I noticed her presence. I recognized her but couldn't remember where I had seen her before. Then she approached me and asked if I was that gunfighter from the movies. That got us talking. To sum it up, she was trying to get away from some lawyers and a man she was married to but wanted to leave. We went out for a meal, had some drinks, and spent the next few days together. After that, she called her agent, flew back to Los Angeles, and that was the last time I saw her in person. As far as I know, she never shared those days with anyone. Neither did I. So now you know something few do. Why don't I feel special about it? It could have been different if I weren't famous, but that's the trade-off. Good things can be quite overwhelming. We both drank quietly for a few moments, and I tried to ignore the noises from the other room. It sounded like they were having fun. He took another sip, swirling the golden drink in the glass, and then looked at me. You know why we really connected, right? You always liked my charm? Despite how I feel now, that's not it. It's because we are similar people. I nodded. I already knew that. I had only been in the office a couple of years, but I felt the pressure of my work. I spent more time there than I should have, realizing it took me away from my family. But it was my life, and every day mattered. I wasn't the best attorney, but I worked harder than anyone else. Over the years, I noticed Richard was the same kind of person. He wasn't as talented a writer as someone like Carl Cameron, but I had never met anyone who was. Harry Bass, another reporter, was just different. He had earned a nickname due to his surprisingly complicated love life, which seemed almost made up. But he had a knack for uncovering unexpected stories that others could not find. No one could compete with him. Richard Anderson worked hard every day, even on his days off. He didn't have much of a personal life, but he still found time to keep his spirits up. We sat in silence with our drinks. The noises from the other room were getting louder, and I began to hear someone call out his name. He glanced over his shoulder and sighed. "Things are getting interesting, Maitland. I believe in taking chances, and I don't want to miss this one. It's a tough life, but I know," he said, shaking his head and understanding my thoughts. "Sometimes a person has to do what they must." We both sat quietly. It was time for me to leave. I probably wouldn't see him again. He'd return to his life and I would go back to mine. There was a sense of sadness in that moment. Maybe it was because he reminded me of a happier time in my life. There are moments, Bill, when I think about what could have happened if I'd spent time with Suzanne on a different day, or if those people had made a different choice that day. He stared off into the distance, lost in thought about the past. It would have been just a normal day. I would have covered a good story and had a chance to connect with Suzanne. I really think I might have tried to get closer to her. She seemed to like me, even if she wasn't that kind of person. You can often tell when someone is interested, even if it might not be right. I believe I could have had a chance within the next few months. But she might have ended it after a few weeks because she would feel unsure, and we could have shared smiles whenever we saw each other over the years. She would probably still be alive today, along with her husband. And who knows where I would be working, maybe here or in Atlanta, Miami, Chicago, or LA. I think I would have found my path, and the story that would have gotten me noticed. I might not be as famous as Edward R. Murrow or Walter Cronkite, but I believe I would have been a good reporter wherever I landed. He looked down at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. When I got out of the hospital and started getting offers for my first books and went to LA and New York for talk shows, I loved being in the spotlight. I enjoyed the financial success too. You wouldn't believe how much they offered me. The attention was overwhelming. It took me a long time to see beyond the glitz and the fancy dinners, the chance to write my opinions, and the nice hotels in Manhattan. All that happened because people saw me as a hero. I was motivated by the unfairness of a woman I knew being taken from us, and I took action against those responsible. But being a hero is a tough role. I could attend events hosted by wealthy people and take part in various promotional activities. But when I applied for jobs at newspapers, no one really wanted me. Sure, they gave me a chance, but I never quite fit in. The women who were supposed to guide me seemed more focused on personal matters. The men were jealous, and the higher-ups doubted I could be a real journalist after living a life filled with celebrity. I wrote 2 books on my own. They were okay, but people expected either poorly written celebrity stories or something amazing. I'm not a great writer, not even really good. Cameron could have made it, but I just didn't have that skill. I can write news articles, but not much else. I tried out for roles in movies that didn't involve violence. I took acting lessons, but I know I'm not an actor. I could get some roles because of my name, but after the first few times, casting directors didn't call me back for real acting jobs. He stood up. "The truth is, I'm just a hero. I probably always will be, and you can't go back." He looked around the hotel room and seemed full of feelings. "When it comes down to it, Bill, even if it sounds strange, I miss this life. This life here. Who would have thought?" He reached out and I stood up to take his hand. "I would tell you not to get too caught up in this, Bill. You've had a taste of it, and it's growing. It will be easy to let it pull you in, especially if you win more big cases as the angel of death. People will come to you with offers for movies and TV shows. I doubt personal temptations will be a problem with the person you're seeing now, but there will be money and attention and everything they can think of to attract you to that world. I would remind you to stay true to yourself, but I don't have to. You're different from me. You love what you do. You are what you do. When I go back, I'll think about you from time to time doing your job as a prosecutor, being a father, probably a husband again because you like being married. I'm going to envy you, Bill. If you ever need anything, Richard, like legal help or a place to stay, you know where to find me." He walked me to the door, and as I stepped out into the quiet hallway, he smiled at me. "You know I'm going to forget all that wise talk as soon as I open that door, right? Enjoy, Richard. I'll remember for you." November 13th, 2005, Saturday morning, 12:45 a.m. After leaving Anderson's room at the Omni, I took a deep breath. Winter usually doesn't hit Jacksonville until January or February, though there have been some cold mornings in December. The air felt chilly as I breathed it in, even with the warm coat I had put on before picking up Myra to head to the Riverwalk. The cold felt sharper now than it did last year. I figured it had something to do with my weight. 50 pounds ago, I could stroll around here without feeling so cold. But tonight, the wind from the river made me shiver. I could have gone home. I chose not to stay with Anderson. I felt exhausted after spending time with Myra. Thinking about being close to someone right now was tough. I could have gone back to Myra's place. We had enjoyed evenings together before. We got along well without needing to be super close, though I understood why she didn't fully trust my choices. Still, that phone call lingered in my mind. I was glad I hadn't said anything directly to her. We were still early in our relationship, and I didn't know what was typical for us. I had never been in a situation like this before. Back in college, I had dated more than one girl at a time, and I believe they were seeing others too. Those days were the peak of my dating experiences. Even though we were close, it was never serious. We were just friends who sometimes shared special moments. With Myra, things felt uncertain. This was more than just two people getting to know each other. It felt more complicated. I wasn't in love with her, and I didn't think she was in love with me either. But there were feelings. Cassandra, like many women, sensed something was different, and she wasn't entirely wrong. There were layers between us that I couldn't fully understand. I had learned that Myra, who appeared calm, was dealing with her own struggles, perhaps more than I realized. I enjoyed Myra's company, and I liked her. But my feelings were still very different from what I shared with Debbie and Aline. Should it bother me that she was seeing other men? Honestly, it did. I had come to realize that behind her calm exterior, she had a passionate side. If she was spending time with someone, there was likely more going on. So what did it matter? I kept asking myself that. I could spend time with other women too. If someone called me on a night when Myra was busy, I would accept the invitation without feeling guilty. So why shouldn't she have that same freedom, especially since she had a lot to offer? Logically, there was no reason to see it as a problem. But emotions rarely follow logic. Deep down, I knew it bothered me. I didn't want to be close to her tonight. I didn't feel comfortable there. I was also aware that my Thanksgiving invitation might come back to haunt me. Right now, there was nothing I could do about it but push it from my mind. Yet something was still swirling in my thoughts. I felt restless and anxious. It had been a long day filled with many surprises. I discovered the existence of David Bloodworth, like an unknown threat appearing before me. It disrupted all my plans for the Sutton trial, and I realized that Myra remained the puzzle she had always been, a mystery with hidden truths that I was just starting to unravel. I also knew there were dangerous people out there who did not want the trial of Mendoza to go smoothly. If it did, I had no idea how I could keep my family safe from them. Even though I had strong friends helping me, fear still whispered in the back of my mind. A determined and clever federal prosecutor was searching for the secret that had kept me safe from the Mexicans. Prentice might be more dangerous than both the Mexicans and Bloodworth. These worries would explain how uneasy I felt, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. I found myself crossing Water Street and going back toward the landing. My watch under a streetlight showed it was almost 1 a.m. There were still some partygoers walking to their cars, but it felt quieter and more peaceful. I took a deep breath of the night air, and it felt good. I was back at the landing now. There were still a lot of dedicated partiers, and a few restaurants like Hooters and Cinco de Mayo were busy trying to make the most money they could from the night. As I watched the entrance of McCool's, a group of about 10 men and women stepped out. A young man in his 20s carried a sleeping toddler on his shoulder. A pretty brunette reached up to gently touch the boy's hair before leaning in closer. I glanced at my watch. It was 1:15 a.m. on Saturday, November 13th. I looked up at the nearly full moon hanging over the river in Jacksonville, shining brightly like a scene from a science fiction movie. It seemed close enough to reach out and touch. Its light made everything below it sparkle. Tears filled my eyes as I looked at the bright moon. We often say some dates will be remembered forever. When we say this, we truly mean it. If only life could pause, not keep moving forward, taking away the strength of our memories and replacing them with new ones. I started walking back to my car parked at the Omni, and before I knew it, I was jogging, then trotting, and finally running as fast as I could. Soon I was in the Escalade, driving quickly, confident that I would use every connection I had if I was stopped. I was determined not to be stopped. I was almost there when it hit me that she might not be home. Maybe I wasn't the only one who had forgotten. What would I do then? She had a life too, and perhaps new plans had taken the place of our old memories. It seemed like such a small thing, this ceremony we held every November 12th. But it would break my heart if it ended tonight. It would be as if he was once here, but now completely gone. I pulled into the driveway. The house was dark. Her car might be in the garage. I walked up the driveway onto the steps of the house and listened. I heard nothing. No radio, no television. I knocked on the door. Silence. I knocked again, pressed the doorbell, and each time I knocked, I hit harder, feeling more desperate. And then I knew she wasn't there, and we would not keep our memory alive. We might meet another day, but it would feel different. The light turned on around me as the door opened a crack before being pulled back fully. Her hair fell over her face, hiding her eyes. They were red, and her cheeks were still damp from tears. "I thought you forgot. I didn't think you'd come." "I almost did forget. I'm really sorry." She turned and went back inside the house. I followed, locking the door behind me. She walked into the living room where a bottle and 2 glasses were waiting on the coffee table. She poured me a glass of whiskey. I never had the chance to drink with my father, but my mother once told me that when I was born, he raised a glass to celebrate. When he was born, his father did the same with the same whiskey. It was a tradition in our family. So, with my mother and Debbie, once things settled down, we had raised a glass to our first child. We did the same when celebrating BJ's arrival. "To Roy Brian Ewan Maitland," she said, lifting her glass high so the whiskey sparkled. "To Roy Brian Ewan Maitland," I replied, raising my glass to meet hers. Without looking at each other, we drank our glasses dry. She picked up a candle in the center of the table. "I'm glad you waited." She finally looked at me. "I wanted to, but I couldn't. I thought if you weren't here, I might as well raise a toast to him myself." "You could have called me. If we forget him, then what's the point of any of this?" I grabbed the matchbox and struck one to light the candle. We watched the flame flicker in the air. "Happy birthday, Brian," I managed to say. It didn't feel like my voice. We had just missed it. His birthday was November 18th at 11 p.m., but this was close enough. Debbie turned away from me, her body shivering. It felt odd, but I gently put my hands on her shoulders and turned her back to me. She leaned into me, seeking comfort in my presence. It felt right, even if my mind told me it shouldn't. We sat quietly for a while until she relaxed, and we leaned back against the couch. How did everything go so wrong? I don't know, Deb. I've never understood it, even from the start with Brian. Do you think about him often? I mean, not just tonight? Sometimes, but the memories fade. Today was hectic and his memory got pushed aside. But I did remember him. Kelly and BJ are starting to forget him. BJ was too young, but even Kelly, I don't think she remembers him anymore. That was our hope. They shouldn't have to carry that loss forever. As long as we remember him, that's what matters. But we're forgetting too. No, Deb, no. I haven't forgotten him, and I don't think you have either. She leaned against me once more. I often think it was my fault. No, please don't believe that. I drank too much. Maybe that led to his loss. I just didn't know. I had no idea. The doctors said that drinking in the early months couldn't have caused it. You couldn't have known. You were on the pill, and it usually works. Plus, it was a natural loss. Your body just wasn't ready for a baby at that time. It wasn't your fault, Deb. You have to believe that. You can say that, Bill, because you didn't carry him. He wasn't a part of you. He was a part of me, Deb. I felt him move. I saw the pictures. He was mine, too. She reached for the last item on the coffee table. The black and white picture was safe in plastic. It would never change. It showed his small body curled up. You could see his arms and legs, even his tiny fingers and toes. It was the only picture we would ever have of our third child, our second son. He would have been 9 tonight if you counted the night he passed as the night he would have been born. She traced her fingers over the sonogram. "It's not fair," she whispered. "We will never see his baby pictures, or his first-grade class photo, or know who his first crush would have been. We'll never see him graduate or hold his own children. It's just not fair." "I know, Debbie. It's not fair." She was quiet for a long time, then she said, "It doesn't matter what happened between us. He was our son, and no one understands that. He was real." "We understand it, Deb. We're the only ones who count." After a while, she turned my face toward her. "You've become quite the fighter, haven't you? You were protective of her, weren't you? I definitely had better sense when I was married to you." At 2:30 a.m., she began to doze off. "Bill, you don't have to leave. It's okay tonight. You can rest on the couch or in the bed." "It's not a good idea, Deb. We remembered him this year, and we'll do it again next year. But you should get some rest, and I'll let myself out. I still have my keys." We walked back to what had been our bedroom. She looked at me for a moment before sliding under the covers. I knelt beside her, and even though she looked at me, I couldn't tell what she was feeling. I gently touched her forehead and stood. "Good night, Deb." I think we both had tears in our eyes. It had never been clearer before what we had lost. Every other night that we marked our son's short life, no matter how hard it had been for us, we found comfort together for that one night. It was even colder when I stood on what had been my front porch. Things had changed, and they would never be the same again. But we had remembered him and silently shared our love for him. That was enough. November 15th, 2005, Monday morning, 10 a.m. I had set my alarm for 5 a.m. on Monday and went to bed by 10 p.m. on Sunday. I woke up feeling rested in my body but tired in my heart. I still couldn't get over that phone call I received at Myra's condo. The weekend had been full of ups and downs. Between the argument with Bloodworth, the trials coming up, the exciting night at the Mexican Rose, the meeting with Anderson, who reminded me of our son, my time with Debbie, and that phone call, it was a long and restless Sunday. By 3 p.m., my head hurt from thinking too much, so I decided to stop by Carlos's gym. When I walked in, Ernesto was talking with a couple of young athletes. He nodded at me, which was more friendly than usual. I put on gloves and began hitting the heavy bag. It felt good. The more I hit, the lighter I felt. Everything around me faded away as I focused on my punches, trying to hit the bag a little harder each time. After a while, I saw Ernesto standing on the other side of the bag. "Who is it?" When I didn't respond, he stepped in front of me and blocked my last punch, which might have caused some trouble if it had landed. I moved back. "Who are you trying to fight, Maitland?" "Just someone. I think he's from your country." "It's a woman, right?" "A woman?" He smiled at me. "Men only fight that hard over a woman. It surprises me." "What?" "I didn't think men your age could still feel so strongly about someone." "Carlos must have told you that you talk too much." "Yeah, but I can back it up." I looked him over. He was still as big as before, but he didn't scare me anymore. "This isn't like 7 months ago, Ernesto, and Carlos isn't here to help you." He smiled. "Oh, I see someone had a rough weekend. You feeling strong today?" "Just really annoyed." "Come into the ring. Let's see how strong you really are." I thought about it for a moment. My face wouldn't get hurt much, and I didn't have anything against Ernesto. I just wanted to let out some of my feelings. I stepped into the ring. Ernesto was following me in when I turned and surprised him with a quick punch. He stumbled back but quickly regained his footing. "You're clever." "Didn't you learn to keep your guard up?" "I sure did." He got in some good blows, but I think he was going a little easy on me. The rest of the day went by quietly. Around 6 p.m. my phone rang. It was Kelly. "Daddy, have you made any plans for Thanksgiving?" "No, not really. Why?" "Grandma and Grandpa are hosting it at their house this year. BJ and I were wondering if you could come by for a few hours." I don't know. What does your mother think? She was a bit quiet when we mentioned it, but Grandma and Grandpa are excited and she hasn't said no. It doesn't have to be a big gathering, but it would be nice for us to be together even for a little while. I'll think about it. You should talk to her and make sure it's fine. I don't want to come if it's going to cause trouble. A few hours later, my phone rang again. Hello, Bill. This is your mom. I would love to hear from you more often, or maybe see you once a year. I visited in September, Mom, remember? It's been a busy year. I should feel lucky to see you once a year? I wonder how often other families get together. I guess you're busier than they are, though. Where is the school where all mothers learn to make their kids feel guilty? Being sarcastic is not your best quality. I'm sorry, Mom. This year has been tough. I'm sorry I haven't come to visit. You can make it up by joining us for Thanksgiving. I'm not sure, Mom. I'm cooking turkey, cornbread dressing, giblet gravy, cranberry sauce, and mashed potatoes. It's all your favorite. Charles invited his children, and they will bring their kids. You haven't seen them much since we got married, and they are family now. When I didn't answer, she said, Please don't tell me you're spending Thanksgiving with her, Bill. What more does she need to do to get you to stay away? It's not what you think, Mom. So you are spending it with her. Kind of. I don't believe you. Kelly called a little while ago. The Bascoms are having a Thanksgiving dinner, and the kids will be there along with Debbie. Kelly asked me to come. Apparently, BJ wants me to spend some time with them. What else can I do? They're my kids. I wasn't there for them for years. We haven't spent time together since the separation, and they want me there this time. I can't just not go, Mom. When will their dinner be? I didn't ask, but I think it will be on Thursday, the 24th. The Bascoms usually eat around 1 or 2 p.m. I guess we usually have our main meal on Thursday and another meal on Friday. Charles's kids are planning to spend the weekend here and probably take their kids to Disney World on Saturday. Let's do this, Mom. If I go, it's because I'm not sure if Debbie wants me there, but I'll get there in the morning, eat, and then leave by 3 or 4 p.m. I could be at your place by 7 or 8 p.m. just in time for a late turkey dinner. I'll stay and visit the next day. How does that sound? That sounds good, Bill. Charles and I will be happy to see you. It will do you good to get away from Jacksonville. I know you want to see Kelly and BJ, but try not to let it upset you. This will be the first time you've all been together since everything happened, and holidays can be hard. I expect it will be tough, but I'll manage. Just be careful and remember the past. Mom, we're divorced. It's not a never-ending battle. It's not going to be over for you two. Mom, please, I love you and I know you're on my side, but you have to let this go. We got divorced. It wasn't a battle. It won't end until you let go of your feelings for her. You can try to tell yourself otherwise, but I know you're not there. How long did it take for you to stop loving Dad? How many years after he was gone? It's not the same, Bill. Your father cared for me until the very end. And I always showed him how much I cared. But she hurt you. She had someone else in your place when you were still there. I know what she did. I haven't forgotten anything. You say that. But my biggest fear is that one day you'll call me to say that you two are back together and trying again. I took a deep breath to keep myself calm and not snap at her. It isn't going to happen, Mom. It will never happen. But if it did, I'm 42 years old. I can make my own choices. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not a kid anymore. I'm a grown man and a father. It's my life. You made your own choice before. You're an adult, and I can't tell you what to do. But I can share this. I was always true to your father. I loved him with everything I had. If I had done what she did to you, he would have left me. I wouldn't have blamed him. There was a long silence. I could hear her heavy breathing on the phone. If he had taken me back, I would have lost all my respect for him. I would have taken you and left. I couldn't respect someone who would swallow their pride like that. That's what you need to remember, Bill. I'm a woman. And I know what I'm talking about. If you take her back, she won't value you for it. She will look down on you even if she doesn't admit it. And she might hurt you again, because you can't truly care for someone you don't respect. After another pause, she hung up. I wondered what it would have been like to grow up in a happy family where a wife and mother-in-law got along, filled with warmth instead of a long-running tension. On Monday morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. and got to Hurley's gym by 6:45, working out for an hour and a half before heading to the courthouse by 9 a.m. I went to my office to start clearing the always growing pile of papers and notes that seemed to multiply if I didn't keep up with them daily. I hadn't spoken to Myra since early Saturday morning. Around 10 a.m., thoughts of her started creeping in. Part of me didn't want to reach out, while another part really wanted to talk to her. I began to dial her office extension, but stopped myself. I got up, took the elevator to the 5th floor, and walked toward Edward's office with her desk just to the left. She was wearing a bright green top and a nice pantsuit. She was working on the computer with her back to me. "Hi," I said as I leaned forward and touched her shoulder since we were alone. She turned around in her chair and looked at me with an expression I didn't recognize. It was different from the friendly looks she used to give. Now she seemed distant, as if I was a stranger. My hand hovered in the air, unsure what to do. She pushed her chair back from me. "Mr. Edwards isn't here yet. We can use his office. We need to talk." I was surprised and confused by this change. I felt like I should be upset, but the idea of talking in Edward's office intrigued me. I hoped she would walk in first, but she signaled for me to go ahead. As I stepped in, I glanced back at her. She stood with her arms crossed, showing she was not pleased. We shared a long look in silence. Then she spoke. "Don't call me." "When?" "Ever." "What do you mean?" "Don't call me at work. Don't call me at home. Forget my number. I know you need to come here to meet Mr. Edwards, but let's keep it professional. I don't want to talk to you outside of work." Her voice was flat and showed no feelings. She looked straight at me, and the warmth I once saw in her eyes felt far away. I reached my hands toward her, but she moved back. "Why, Myra? What's going on? What did I do?" "Mr. Maitland, you heard me. I don't want to talk to you. You're smart enough to understand that I only want to see you for work. Why can't you get that? Why? Just 2 nights ago we were close friends and I thought that's how we left things. Now you want nothing to do with me. That's confusing. I don't owe you an explanation. I just don't want to be involved with you anymore. That's my choice. I hope you can respect it and leave me alone." I lowered my hands. "Of course, I understand that. I won't contact you if that's what you want, but that's exactly what I want." She turned to walk away. "I will respect your wishes. I wish you could tell me what changed. I thought we were friends." "I guess I was mistaken." She paused, her hand on the doorknob. "You couldn't just let it go, could you, Bill?" "I really don't understand what you mean." Without looking back, she asked, "Do you think I'm foolish?" "I still don't." She turned to face me, her look changing from distant to serious. "You do know the messages on my answering machine are time-stamped, right?" I struggled to find the right words. "The message was left while I was in the shower. You were in the other room. You heard it. You could have asked me about it. You could have ignored it. But you chose to make me look untrustworthy, didn't you?" She kept her gaze fixed on me. "I knew it was wrong. Even while I was doing it, I felt guilty. But I didn't think clearly for a moment. I could have asked you, but I felt I shouldn't have interfered in your personal life." "Exactly, Bill. You had no right to. We're not married or engaged. We're just 2 people who liked each other. That's all." She took a deep breath, clearly upset. "But since it's over, go ahead and ask me. I know you want to know." "I don't." "Ask me. Who is he? What does he mean to you?" "Tomas is an investment banker in Latin America. He has an office in Miami and useful connections. We met in Miami 3 years ago and have seen each other now and then since then. I've been to some lovely places with him." "So he's just another friend, like me." "Not just like you. He is a friend, and we share a special connection. I've enjoyed our time together and have held on to those moments. I would have shared this with you if I hadn't feared it would hurt you, so I kept it to myself." She touched her lips and said, "Don't look at me like that, Bill. I've never asked about what you do when you're not with me. I don't have any claim on you, just as you have none on me. My choices and who I spend time with are my own business." "You're right, Myra. I understand that. But it's difficult to see you that way because—" She shook her head slowly. "Because you're still holding on to your past, Bill. You fear that if you care for me, I will become someone from your past that you lost, and you want to return to a time before the hurt, right?" She stepped closer until we were nearly touching. "But that will never happen. I'm not that person. I never will be. I don't want to be married. You tell yourself that, Myra. But if you're honest, admit that there's something beneath the surface between us. She looked down, then up at me and reached out to softly touch my jaw. Yes, I know there's something there. It can't go beyond friendship, but there is a connection. I took a chance because I wanted to be close to you. And now my fears have come true. You can't just be friends, Bill. That's not who you are. We could give it a try. No, I tried that once with another good guy. I ended up pushing him away and hurting him. It also hurt me. I promised I wouldn't make that mistake again, but here we are. I should have kept my distance from you. But I didn't. And now comes the tough part, Bill. I know you might think I'm being unkind, but I'm doing this for both of us. No chances for a redo? No point, Bill. Whether you agree or not, I believe this is the right choice. You'll be fine. I moved closer and gave her a hug. I expected her to pull away, but she stayed still. I won't disturb you again, Myra, but I want to thank you. You made the last few months some of the best I've ever had. I can't blame you for how things ended. I'll never regret our time together. I wish you well, and if you ever need a friend, I'll be around. As I walked away, a heavy feeling settled in my stomach. I was going to miss her, but I could leave without feeling like I was losing a part of myself. Myra was fascinating, but she wasn't Debbie or Aline. If there was anything good to come from the breakup, it was that. I had feelings for Myra, and maybe they could have grown, but they weren't as strong as what I had felt for Debbie or Aline. I left the office and went back to the elevator, then to my desk. Cheryl was back at her station in front of mine. "Oh, good morning, Mr. Maitland. I saw you were in and then left. Taking care of personal matters?" She smiled at me. "Just finishing some things, Cheryl. I was enjoying some quiet time, but we all have to face reality eventually." She gave me a curious look. "I know you don't mean to be Mr. Maitland, but sometimes you can be, as they say, a puzzle." "Didn't mean to confuse anyone. I just meant it's time to get back to work. Can you go down to Starbucks and get my usual? Only if you say please." But she was smiling. Please. An hour later, while I was deep in paperwork, the phone rang and Cheryl said, "It's him." "What happened, Bill?" "Be more specific." "Your favorite secretary looks like she lost something important and won't say a word about it or about you. What's going on?" "Something silly happened, but I guess it was bound to occur. You know she's not meant for ordinary people, right?" There was a long pause. "I know, but I hoped she might help you heal some of your wounds. Is there any chance of that? If I were younger and single, I'd do anything for a second chance." "Thanks, Dallas, but this one hurts deeply. I don't think anything will help." "Okay. Are you going to be all right? You know you have the worst luck with women of anyone I know." "I think I'm finally building up my strength, Dallas. I'll be okay. I'm already back to work." November 15th, 2005, Monday, 10 a.m., Washington, D.C. "Mr. Prentice, you have a call from Mr. Smith at State. Can you take it?" Put him on. "Jeremy, do you have a minute?" "About 10. There's a meeting in Villanueva's office. Some new updates from Mexico. It seems there might be another leak involving the DEA or the Joint Mexius Drug Task Force in Tijuana. It's tough to keep things quiet down there." "Good luck with that. I heard something you might want to know about." "Yeah? You asked us to watch for anything unusual related to the Mendoza case, the cartel, and this Maitland character in Jacksonville. You found something." "Something? Like what?" "That's the tricky part, Jeremy. It's both unclear and surprising." "Tell me already." "Well, we've been analyzing communication from known cartel sources, focusing on Mendoza, the leaders, Maitland, and a possible cartel trial in the U.S. The programs are still running, and there's some talk about Maitland, but not much more than you already know. So we decided to broaden our search. We used top programs to check communication in and out of the Jacksonville courthouse, looking at data from the last few weeks. And we matched the search patterns with any known people involved in trafficking, terrorism connections, and criminal groups like the Mafia and others from different countries. When you search this broadly, you might not find anything for years, or you might find something quickly. We didn't expect anything big. Then a few hours ago, something flagged our attention. I'm getting older waiting. I really believe that. Does the name Leandro Rojas mean anything to you? Not that can't be. Yeah, the old man. How did a Colombian figure that many believe is dead show up on your radar? That's a great question. When his name appears, people pay attention, so we looked closer. We checked with the DEA, FBI, National Security, CIA, and Army Intelligence. It turns out he's very much alive, as far as we know, and despite staying out of sight, he's involved in some questionable activities around the world. We also think one of his main bases is in Cali, Colombia. He now seems to have security to match anything the Pentagon would expect, so we couldn't detect any real messages going in or out of there. What we did catch were some very scrambled messages from Rojas's base in Cali to the Jacksonville courthouse. This means that someone in Rojas's group is using advanced technology to talk to someone in a small-town American courthouse. What could they be discussing? Yeah, Jeremy, it really makes you think. But you won't believe this. It gets even more interesting. How? There are not only messages going out from Rojas's base to the courthouse, there are also messages coming from the courthouse and sent to Cali. So, Cali is reaching out to Jacksonville, and Jacksonville is replying. Yeah, but that's not even the most surprising part. That would be surprising enough. I know, but consider this. The Rojas group has such tight security that it rivals many governments. No one can just call the main number of Rojas. There are many electronic barriers and checks to get through to reach anybody near the headquarters. But these messages went straight through all of that. No checks, no passwords, nothing. For all we know, Rojas could have received the call directly. Who could have that kind of power? That's all? Just, I don't even know what to think right now. It'll take a while to process. Well, I'm just an analysis drone and not part of the big decisions, but even I wonder if this might be an opening into one of the most powerful criminal groups in the world. The old man has connections deeper in some governments like China and Japan than we do. There are places where they don't even say his name like it's a bad omen. Jeremy, are you still there? Yeah, I'm here, just thinking. I know how important this could be, but it caught me off guard. I didn't expect to hear this at all. It's just unexpected. What could Rojas have to do with the cartel, Maitland, or the Mendoza trial? Why would he care? Rojas is a key player in the global drug market, Smith, but I've never heard of any direct connection or conflict between the cartel and Rojas's group. They usually operate in separate spaces. Borders can shift, Jeremy. Business partnerships can change fast. Rojas is a businessman, even if his deals can lead to significant consequences. Something might have come up that's brought him into the Mendoza trial, and since this guy Maitland seems to be linked to that trial, it could explain the messages. Yeah, that also helps to clarify something else I found strange. According to some messages we've intercepted, the cartel has told others to leave Maitland and his family alone, especially since it seems there is a real chance the trial might be moved there. Everything we know about the leaders suggests Maitland and his family would usually be in danger, not ignored. But if Rojas has made it clear that Maitland is under his protection, even the cartel might hesitate to challenge him. There's one major issue with this idea, though, Jeremy. I know. Why would Rojas care about a small-town state attorney? An assistant state attorney at that. I just can't understand it. Maybe he's the old man's son from another relationship? Now that would be a surprising twist. Too bad things are rarely that simple. Look, Smith, thanks for this. Even though it will drive me a bit mad. Keep monitoring. He can't have better resources than the U.S. government. We need to find a way to break into his communications. Keep searching. And if anything else of interest comes up, let me know. I'll be moving around since these people can be unpredictable. I want to be informed if anything changes, okay? Got it. But I have to ask, why not have Homeland pick up Maitland, take him to talk, and just ask him what's going on? If he's innocent, and we both suspect he might not be, he'll likely tell you. If not, there are ways to get information. You ever tried fishing out on the ocean, Smith? I get seasick before I even leave the dock. Why do you ask? I have. I went out for swordfish about 8 years ago off Miami. We were out for about 4 hours before I got a catch. I struggled for 3 hours. My arms were about to give in, and then suddenly it was over. I was reeling it in, and people were cheering for me. I looked down and saw the fish just letting me pull it in. I grabbed a knife and cut the line. People still joke about that today. Just couldn't finish the job, but I couldn't do it. You let the fish tire itself out. I don't know what might happen if we catch Maitland. Maybe we'll get answers, or maybe we'll complicate something important related to the Rojas group. I have no clue about what we're dealing with. I feel like I'm walking into a completely dark room, not knowing who or what is inside. So for now, I'm going to let Maitland go. Maybe I'll learn enough to ask the right questions later. He's been in Jacksonville forever, built a life and a career. His ex and kids are there. I don't think he'll run, but we'll be keeping an eye on him. Okay, it's your decision. Just remember this when the next opportunity arises in your area. Of course. 5 minutes later. Roberta, this is Jeremy Prentice. Would you like to help me with something? As in, how big of a favor? I have a task that will need 2 or 3 people, not field agents, because I don't think there will be more than research and interviews. There's no immediate rush or deadline. It doesn't need to be finished by a certain time. I'd like to have a report ready in about a month, he said. What about your firstborn? She joked. Talk to Susie, she's in charge of that. Sure, if you need it, I'll make sure it gets done. What's the task? It's in Jacksonville, but most of the work will be in West Virginia. Jacksonville? You mean the place with the football team? Yes, in Northeast Florida. I'm looking into a background check on an assistant state's attorney down there. His name is William Maitland, and he might be handling a case related to Mendoza. The Angel of Death? How well do you know him? I didn't think you cared much for anything outside of your favorite reality shows. Come on, he's interesting. A devoted husband who faces challenges and fights for justice in court. It sounds like a perfect story for a miniseries. Maybe it will be, but really, Roberta, he's just another lawyer. I didn't think someone like you would fall for that kind of tale. Someone like me? You might want to consider some sensitivity training, but honestly, it's a compelling story. And have you seen his photo? He's slim with a bald head that has a certain appeal. His eyes have a depth to them. They seem to carry a lot of weight, as if seeking understanding. Roberta, my view of your taste is slipping with every word. You're just envious, Jeremy. People are drawn to stories of those who have faced hardships. Losers, he replied. He's a well-known trial lawyer. I bet he gets searched more than 10 big-name lawyers combined. So are you planning to swing by the Jacksonville courthouse and run into the Angel of Death by chance? He's more fascinating as a character than as a date. I already hear enough from men talking about their past relationships. Okay, here's the plan. I want you to find detailed information about Maitland's mother. I believe she is still living. Maitland, who is 42, was born in West Virginia. I need a full report on her history. Where was she born? How did she meet Maitland's father, who died in a mining incident when Maitland was young? What was their marriage like? And I'd like you to focus on the year before Maitland was born. Look for any friends or family from her or his side back when Maitland was born. Conduct a thorough background check because Maitland is being considered for a federal job, and candidates can't share details about their interviews. They were probably quite young then. Did they break up before or after they got married? Did she stay in the small town where she was living with him, or did she leave for a while before coming back? Is this leading where I think it is? Yes. Look for any problems in their marriage. Did she have any old friends or new men in her life during that time? And why are we looking into this? If I told you, I'd have to keep it to myself. While you do that, check the history of Leandro Rojas, a man from Colombia. He would have been in his early 30s about 42 years ago. Is that important? Yes. Today he is a mysterious figure, but 40 years ago he was starting to make a name for himself in Colombia. There might be old police records, local reporters, or informants who knew him and what he was doing back then. You might find an old acquaintance from that time. What then? See if there's any way these two might have crossed paths. A girl from a small town in the South, likely newly married, and a man involved in questionable activities on a different continent. I know it seems unlikely, but sometimes things happen. She might have had a fight with her husband and gone to visit an aunt in New York or Miami. Maybe he was in the U.S. for work, and they met by chance. It's possible they encountered each other while she was out with friends, dealing with personal issues. But why do you think they interacted 40 years ago, and why does it matter? I can't share that, but I care enough to have a team look into this carefully. It's very important. I don't want anyone outside your group to know what you're working on. You can tell Krutz it's just a routine check before the Mendoza trial if it goes to Jacksonville. If he has any questions, and if he presses too hard, contact me and I'll handle it. How soon do you want me to gather a team and start? Yesterday, November 16th, 2005. Tuesday, I got up at 6 a.m., which wasn't hard since I had gone to bed at 9 p.m. the night before. After my breakup with Myra, every thought about it made me feel young again. I quickly returned to my work and exercise routine that I had during my divorce. Instead of focusing on my feelings for Myra, I decided to spend a few days on a health kick to clear my mind. I concentrated on exercising, spending 3 hours at Hurley's gym and another hour at Carlos's gym. I ran, lifted weights, jumped rope, and hit the heavy bag, trying to release all the emotional weight I had been carrying. I had let those thoughts take up too much of my time. The past few years with Debbie might not have been my best, but I had still done a lot. Changing my thoughts wasn't too hard. I knew that Myra was just one floor above me. I remembered our laughter, and I realized that I missed those good times almost as much as I missed our connection. She was right. I would have wanted more from her than she was ready to give. The memories of what I would no longer have hurt a bit, but not as badly as I had expected. Myra was correct. I wasn't truly ready to be alone. I was just going through the motions. Deep down, I didn't feel like I was thinking like a single man yet. After working hard yesterday and spending 3 hours at Hurley's this morning, I felt a familiar fog settling over me. It was like seeing the world through a gray filter, creating some distance from my feelings of sadness and loss. This made it easier to bring my focus back to my work, and life continued. At 10 a.m., Carlisle walked into my office without a greeting and took a seat across from me. He gave me a quick smile. Despite our shaky beginning, we had built a good working relationship since then. He was dedicated, putting in extra effort at his job. Although he had a girlfriend, a teacher in a Jacksonville high school, they weren't married, so he didn't have to make any tough decisions about his future just yet. I hoped he would get a management position soon where he wouldn't have to work so hard all the time. We're still checking backgrounds on the 10 victims, and a couple could be possibilities, but one stands out, he said. Tell me more. A police officer named Lee Henry. He works for the Spring City Police Department in Spring County, located between Ocala and Gainesville. Highway 301 runs through it, and that would be one of the routes Sutton could have taken to get to his wife. Highway 95 would require him to go east first, adding more stops and chances for someone to recognize him. Highway 301 passes through a quieter area in the middle of the state. What about the timing? It happened during the night or early the next morning, 4 days after Sutton's wife went missing, according to the medical examiner. Henry was working the night shift when Sutton's wife disappeared. He had switched back to day shifts and returned home when firefighters were called to his cabin that night. It seemed like a propane explosion had set the cabin on fire, and he lived in a somewhat secluded area a few miles from Spring City. Carlisle slid a few photographs across my desk. The burned remains of a wooden structure in a forested area, plus 2 others showing what looked like the remains of a large dog and a human figure. The medical examiner said neither Henry nor the dog, a large German shepherd, had been shot. Due to the fire, it was hard to be certain, but it seemed that Henry had serious injuries from something blunt, and the dog may have been harmed in a different way. An investigation found some of Henry's belongings, including a wallet, scattered away from the fire scene. The Spring City Police report suggests that a burglar might have overpowered Henry and the dog, stealing items and possibly setting the cabin on fire afterward. But no one really believes that theory, said the officer. It's hard to imagine a regular burglar facing both an officer and a dog without something else. More likely, the person who harmed the officer caused chaos and started the fire to make it seem like a robbery gone wrong, another officer added. That's what they think as well, Carlisle explained. I spoke with their chief for a few minutes. I believe this case has potential. The question remains, why would anyone want to harm the officer? They had been investigating for 8 months, following many leads without finding answers. Sutton might have met the officer on his way to Jacksonville or back after the sad events with his family, I said, feeling hopeful. If Sutton did anything to get the officer's attention related to his family's case, he might have gone back to clean things up. That's a possibility, Carlisle replied. But what could scare Sutton enough to confront an officer and a dog? It's not a simple situation. That's what you need to find out. Jasper Hill in Felony 3 is retiring in 6 months. We'll need a new head attorney for his division. If you solve this, I feel it could be you." He looked at me for a moment, then stood up and extended his hand. "I never apologized for what I said that day, Mr. Maitland. I was upset, but that doesn't excuse being unkind when someone is having a hard time. I have a girlfriend who might become my fiancée if I get that promotion. If something like that happened to me, I would be heartbroken." I said many things back then. Remember, you're allowed to make mistakes when you're young. You've done well since. Let's move forward. As soon as I hung up, Cheryl called. "Mr. Maitland, McConnell at St. Vincent's." I feared it was bad news and I wasn't ready for what he said. "Belle has passed away, Bill." November 16th, 2005, Tuesday, 2 p.m. I saw McConnell in the hallway as I stepped out of the elevator and made my way to Belle's room. A few evidence technicians, the beat lieutenant, and surprisingly, Sheriff Knight, were near the nurses' station, along with Dr. Bartram Williams, Belle's cardiologist and one of the top heart surgeons in the state. He had been caring for Belle since the first heart attack and had managed his transfer from Baptist Medical Center to St. Vincent's. Vincent's because he thought Belle would have a better chance there. Williams, 60 and bald, stepped closer to me, holding a cigar in his right hand. I noticed the disapproving looks he got from several nurses and a woman who looked like she was in charge at the hospital. He moved the cigar to his left hand and reached out his right. I took his hand, confused about what was going on. "I wanted to meet a good lawyer. I don't think I've ever had the chance before." "Thanks, but..." He grabbed my arm gently and said, "Walk with me for a minute, away from the crowd." We walked toward a supply room across from the nurses' station. As we walked, he took a puff from his cigar and let the smoke out. The nurses at the station, especially one older woman, showed that he was not very popular. "Aren't you breaking hospital rules by smoking that here, especially near the nurses and maybe even the boss?" He looked back at the nurses, smiled, and winked at one who seemed especially unimpressed. "Probably, but I've taught most of the heart doctors in this city. My results are the best in Florida, and my son is engaged to the lieutenant governor's daughter. I could do something crazy here, and they would just clean it up and keep smiling." He looked back at the nurses and added, "And Nurse Ratchet back there, I had a short encounter with her between my 3rd and 4th marriages, and she just didn't believe me when I said it was nothing serious." He paused and took another puff. "I talked to Wilbur after you brought him in from the river. That was brave of you. I don't know any lawyer with a tough case who would risk what you did to let a dying man enjoy the sun one last time. It doesn't make sense legally." He took another long puff and said, "I don't know if anyone is ever ready to go, but I've seen many people over the years to know that Wilbur had made his peace. That trip out into the fresh air probably meant a lot to him. I just wanted to tell you that, for what it's worth." "Thank you. It means a lot." "Just out of curiosity, why did you do it?" I could say it was the right thing. Most people want to keep their distance from the law. That's normal. The legal system can be helpful when you need it, but can be rough otherwise. Finding witnesses can be hard, and keeping them is even harder. But Wilbur came to us willingly. He stayed with us even knowing he was close to the end. I know he didn't like old lady Sutton, but that isn't a good enough reason to do what he did. I promised him I'd try to get him some fresh air one last time before the end. So I did. He looked at me, took another puff, then shook his head and walked away in the other direction. Knight was waiting for me. He held a manila folder. "Maitland, I have something you might want to see." I took it from him and opened it. Inside was a photograph in a plastic sleeve to protect it. I looked closely at the photo. A young woman sat in a rocking chair with a baby in her arms. There were curtains on either side of the picture. It seemed to have been taken from outside the trailer at quite a distance. Despite that, every detail of the young woman's face and clothes was clear, as well as the back of the baby's head. The baby looked to be about a year old and seemed happy leaning against her. She was a pretty brunette, and I'd never seen her before, but she felt familiar, even though part of her face was covered with a red X. Oddly, the same red X marked the back of the baby's head. "What do you know about this?" "Well, we had a guard watching Belle, but right before the shift change, a couple nearby started a loud argument that led to a fight. Hospital security had to step in. The guard was distracted for just a few minutes, about 5 minutes at most, giving someone a chance to get into the room. When the guard returned, he found Bell in trouble, and nurses and doctors quickly came in. They need to do more tests, but early toxicology results suggest he wasn't poisoned. There are other reasons he could have had an issue, but it looks like he had a heart attack. A real heart attack. He was already in a risky situation. This was similar to what we had heard before, but the doctors hadn't been so sure that poison or something physical caused the heart attack. It's pretty strange that a fight broke out just then, pulling away his guard, I said. And we know they already tried to scare him once. That was our thought, too. I had the hospital checked for anything unusual. In the trash can at the end of Bell's floor, we found this photo. We don't know what it means, but it's strange. I looked at it again, trying to make sense of it, and then a memory of something Bell had told me pieced together. The only odd part was why this photo was found so close to Bell's room. Then it clicked. Can I keep this for a bit? I don't think this will ever be used, but I want to confirm it was in my possession to keep everything clear. Why? When I explained, Knight's expression turned serious. That's troubling. He's disrespecting us. As I said, unless we find fingerprints or other real proof linking anyone to this, I'm not sure we can charge anyone. But I want to be sure. It would help us all feel motivated to get this person off the streets. From the office at St. Vincent's, I called the Ocala-Marion County Sheriff's Office and spoke with Deputy Ned Coleman. I told him what I needed him to do. I sent over the photo without affecting the important details of the evidence. Then, I shared a photo of Mama Sutton around the hospital. I knew this photo might not solve our issues even if someone recognized her, but it could bring some clarity to the situation. After that, I worked with Mitch McConnell to track down some loose ends and confirm my thoughts. At 7 p.m., my phone buzzed. Hi, Bill. I heard. I'm sorry. Hi, Dallas. How's Miami? Hot, in many ways, but productive. I've secured a couple of key endorsements and a promise of good financial support for the campaign. What about Sutton? Any updates? I took a sip of the cappuccino I brought from the courthouse. I had settled into an unused conference room on Bell's floor. The cappuccino and some chicken strips would have to keep me going tonight. I wasn't likely to go out for dinner or hit the gym because I had too many details about Bell's death on my mind that I wanted to look into while everything was still fresh. No updates. We are still searching for any link to that other murder, but we haven't found anything yet. I suspect that by tomorrow, Macon will be trying to have Pizarro drop the case. Just remember, you are the one who decides if you want to continue. With Bell gone, his recorded statement will hold just as much weight 5 years from now as it does today. The urgency is fading. Macon made that same point to me, Dallas. It's your decision. You can push it to the limit and pull back if you feel it's necessary. I know. Tell me what you've discovered. I shared the details I had, the mysterious photo, and some other information I gathered. Wow, they sure are confident, but since we lack proof, don't go after Bloodworth or his crew. It could be them, but something doesn't feel right. That's why I'm sharing the other photo. It won't prove anything. Only how extremely confident Sutton and his mother are. That might be helpful later. Keep me updated. I have to meet with another group of donors, so I'll let you go. Good luck, Dallas. Thanks. It's all about the numbers. If you keep the convictions and headlines coming, the money will keep coming in. I'll do my best. After he hung up, Dave Brandon entered the room. Any luck? Pretty much what we expected. Henry Drummer and his wife Miriam were at home yesterday when they got a call from a woman who wouldn't say her name. She told them that Miriam was going to St. Vincent's today for some tests related to something Henry had just admitted. The caller advised them to check under their welcome mat, where they found $10,000 in cash. The caller told them to pretend to argue at exactly 3 p.m. after they synced their watches. She also said they would find another $15,000 somewhere in their house within the next week. The caller didn't say what the argument should be about, and the Drummers didn't ask. They were shocked when we detained them because of a serious issue, so they willingly shared their phone records. The call came from a payphone, one of the few left in the city, so it was hard to trace the caller. We had a witness who saw a man enter Bell's room right after Deputy Howard left. Thanks to a company logo, we found him. Johnny Sellers, a 55-year-old former cop from Miami, said he received a manila envelope and a separate business envelope with $1,000, along with instructions to deliver it to Bell's room at exactly 3:01 p.m. He saw Howard leave, but he claimed he was paid not to ask questions. He went in, handed the envelope to Bell, and helped him open it without looking inside. Then he made a call and handed the phone to Bell, who looked worried. Sellers let Bell keep the photo for a moment, and after getting it back, he put it back in the manila envelope and left. His instructions were clear. Take it to the trash container on the next floor down and throw it away. Brandon shook his head. The number he provided traced back to a public payphone on Dunn Avenue in Northside. There were no witnesses to say who was calling, so no eyewitness accounts and no phone numbers. I'm sure there won't be any useful prints on anything, I said, looking at the photo and the manila envelope. Knight walked in with Chief of Detectives Harvey Barrow. Barrow was a heavy-set man with white hair who walked with a slight limp from an old injury. Yet his experience and political savvy had kept him in his job despite his challenges. Another detective quietly followed behind them. I wondered if homicide detective Bill Franklin owned anything besides his old brown suit and matching tie that he'd worn for the past 10 years. He always looked like he had just come from a long shift. He had been a detective for many years, never looking for promotions, content to work long hours whenever needed. I didn't know if he was married or had a family, but I somehow sensed he was single. "Our team filled me in on what we've gathered," Barrow said. "What have you found?" "A very complicated situation." "So, you recognize the people in the picture?" "Yes. I contacted the Ocala Sheriff's Office. I remembered Bell mentioning a granddaughter who had a baby shortly after the Sutton incident. She faced some issues during the delivery and was in the hospital, which made him forget about Sutton leaving at night. I sent Deputy Coleman to speak with the granddaughter. She lives in a trailer near Ocala with her baby and the baby's father. Coleman showed her the picture, and she confirmed it was a photo of her and her son, saying it was likely taken the day before because of what they were wearing. Barrow sat down heavily across from me. And then the courier called someone who probably reminded Bell that if a camera could capture a view from a trailer window like that, a sniper could do the same from a distance, Barrow said. And they might have also reminded him that a strong bullet could easily go through the window. That's what I thought too. That's why there are marks above the baby and mother's heads. It's a way to show how quickly they could be in danger. I gathered that Bell cared for the girl and his great-grandchild. That would make anyone worried, but especially an old man with health issues, it could be too much. Knight stood at the table, looking down at the picture. It makes me sick. Targeting someone while staying out of it. Horrible, yet effective. Very effective, which is why it could involve the Suttons or Bloodworth, but I'm leaning toward the Suttons. Same here, Barrow said. That photo in the trash said a lot. They're teasing us, showing they got rid of Bell and think they won't face consequences. Bloodworth wouldn't feel the need to brag. The more I learn about Sutton, the less I trust him. I have an advantage. I've known him longer and have strong reasons not to like him. Knight looked at me. I'll give you any help you need and have detectives look into it, but what's your plan for now? Find a way to buy some time legally. We have Bell's recorded testimony and another piece of evidence that could be important if we can connect it to the case. But we also need to gather more. My colleagues in homicide mentioned a possible second crime, Barrow said. You know that's a long shot. When you're not sure another crime has taken place, I get it. Many would say to drop the case and wait for something else to show up. But you both know that the longer this takes, the harder it is to build a case. It makes me uneasy to think the person responsible for this sad loss could go free, living their life as if nothing happened. Knight and Barrow exchanged a look. Franklin spoke up for the first time. There's a discussion among the sheriff's office and the police department about whether you'll drop this case. Most people think you will keep going after him no matter what. I looked down at my meal and took a bite, followed by a sip of lukewarm coffee. Many would say there's a thin line between being determined and being too focused. That's true, Barrow replied, but I have to be honest. If it were my daughter and grandchild who were hurt, you're the one I'd trust to seek justice. Knight glanced at the table and saw the picture of Mama Sutton. I hear you have her in the hospital. Yes, they have her in a secure area, monitored by officers and investigators. What's the charge? There isn't one. I could say there's some suspicion, but I mainly want to see her reaction and get information about Sutton. They had her in one of the waiting rooms, which we had cleared out. One of Knight's men stood at the door. I went in and saw her sitting in a chair with a large black bag on the table in front of her. She was wearing black, looking fragile, with her hair styled in a tight bun held up by two thin sticks. Looking at the bun, I wondered if those sticks should be removed for safety. She looked at me with intensity. Your men took my phone, Maitland. But once I get access to a phone, I will make sure you are responsible for this treatment. Why do you think you can approach me like this and interrupt my medical needs? How have you been treated unfairly, Miss Sutton? Your men came into my doctor's office and took me out like I was a criminal. I will have a hard time going back there after this. They weren't my men, Miss Sutton. They were deputies, and I was told they asked you to come with them politely. There wasn't any bad scene until you started calling them uniformed officials and asked other waiting patients to write down names to support your case against the sheriff's office and state attorney's office. They entered the waiting room in uniform. Anyone would see they were taking me. If that were true, you'd be in a cell right now, Miss Sutton, not in a comfortable hospital waiting room. Call it what you want. This is harassment and unfair treatment by a prosecutor who is determined to send my son to prison because a troubled woman who caused my son great pain has sadly passed away, certainly by the hands of someone she knew. And now you're not only going after my son, but also upsetting an elderly woman who has never even gotten a traffic ticket in her life. I'm sorry you feel that way. You can take any legal action you think is right, but I believe any steps you take will be a waste of your time and efforts. I believe when a jury or a judge looks at what we did, they will see we had good reasons. I sat down a little away from the couch. I heard Wilbur Bell passed away a few hours ago. I heard he had a heart attack. Who told you that? Someone, a deputy, a nurse? I can't remember. That might be true, but I think there's a stronger reason. It could be hard to show you knew he had died because you were involved. She looked at me with a serious face. I could sense she might feel pleased inside. You are very focused on my son, Mr. Maitland. My friend drove me to Jacksonville and stayed with me from 10 a.m. this morning until your people took me away. There were many patients who can say I was in Dr. Moore's office for 3 hours before your men came. How could I have caused Wilbur Bell's death? He was not a good person and got what he deserved. I just hope it was hard for him. I can't say how hard it was, but we can prove he was indeed killed. You don't have to pull the trigger to be guilty of murder. People have been charged with murder for causing someone's death in other ways, too. So you think I planned the death of that dishonest man? Not really. It's possible your son had a hand in it. We might never know who really set it up, but I believe one of you did. And there's a clear reason I believe you both were involved. She reached back to play with one of the pins in her hair. I wondered if that was a sign of her nerves. I made a note to remember that. I'm curious to hear this. Your son has a very high view of himself. He could have secretly arranged something against Bell, and we might have never figured out what really happened. But he didn't resist showing off how clever he thinks he is. He told the courier who brought the photo that led to Bell's fall to leave it in the trash on the next floor down. He could have asked him to throw it away somewhere else, but he wanted us to find it and understand exactly how it happened. I looked directly at her, studying her face. There's a belief that our feelings can change our faces over time. Happy people show it, while pain and fear can leave marks, too. She must have once looked different, perhaps even happy with others, but at that moment, I couldn't see it. And then, there's the strange timing of your being here today. Just being in your doctor's office while Bell's situation unfolded sent a message. People do visit the doctor. I could see the smile she was trying to hide. That's true. What's more unusual is when a patient calls their heart doctor with just 3 days' notice and insists on coming in for a checkup that wasn't planned for another 3 months. You were so determined that the office manager finally agreed to try to fit you in, but warned you that it probably wouldn't happen. They even said you might end up waiting all day, but you still insisted on coming in today. I had my reasons. I'm sure you did, or you could at least come up with some convincing ones. It doesn't matter. I stood up and looked at her small frame. She could have been anyone's grandmother if you didn't look into her eyes. It doesn't matter because it worked. Belle has passed away, and that will hurt our case. We know you and your son were involved, but you will likely avoid blame. We're also looking into another incident involving Billy a few days after your daughter-in-law and grandson's tragedy. We don't have all the details yet, but we have some promising leads. I think he will eventually face serious charges. But even that doesn't matter, Mrs. Sutton. I know mothers love their sons, even those who have made mistakes. I know you brought him into this world and you probably chose to have a son with someone you cared about. You have always supported him. I looked into her dark eyes that had seen a lot but still held love for William Sutton. That's why I want you to understand this. More than William himself, I want you to know. Sutton has done terrible things. He's hurt others deeply, including his own family. I could wait. If he avoids facing the truth this time, he might hurt someone else in the future. I could wait. But I won't. He will face the consequences for his actions. It doesn't matter how hard it seems. I will pursue this with all I have. I promise you that I will ensure he is held accountable. He will experience great hardship before facing the results of his actions. It will not be easy for him. Don't be fooled into thinking this will end smoothly. There have been cases where the process had to stop because of unexpected issues. I've talked to people who went through it and described it as incredibly tough. They said it felt overwhelming and hard to bear. I took a step back. The almost smile had disappeared. It doesn't matter how skilled your lawyers are. It doesn't matter what important connections you have. But don't let my words bring you down, Mrs. Sutton. I want you to stay hopeful, even until the very end. I told you before, I hope you live a long life. I want you to be strong enough to see him face the truth of what he has done. We looked at each other, but she didn't back down. It must feel good to think so highly of yourself, Mr. Maitland. You should stop believing everything you read about yourself. You are going to be let down. My son will be free. One of us will be wrong. If I'm mistaken, William will go free. But that is just a matter of time. He has behaviors that could lead him to hurt others. But if you're wrong, he will end up in a place with people who could really harm him. He will be trapped somewhere where no one can promise his safety, not the prison officers or any guards you hire for him. I would hate it, but he might not survive this situation. I turned away from her and walked towards the door. You can leave now, Mrs. Sutton. Go and enjoy the fresh air that Wilbur Bell never will again, and spend time with your son for as long as you can. I took the elevator down to the first floor and walked past the large patient relations desk down a hallway to a simple door marked Hospital Staff Only. You wouldn't guess that a morgue was behind it. That was the idea. People passed by here every day without realizing this was the place for the dead. Bright white lights lit up a desk where a tall person in hospital scrubs was typing on a computer. There was a door to a back room on the left. He quickly stood up and stepped in front of me. Sorry, only hospital staff allowed in here. No public access. I showed him my ID and said, Wilbur Bell, a witness in one of our cases died today. I would like to see him. He led me to a gurney in the back room. It was cold. The metal of the gurney felt freezing. The morgue staff member pulled back a white sheet. They had started an examination, and while they tried to cover him with care, he looked nothing like the person I had talked with earlier in the day. Can I have a moment? Once he stepped away, I looked down at what was left of Wilbur Bell. He looked like a wax figure. I tried not to think of what must have gone through his mind in those last moments. That must have been terrible. The feeling of helplessness. At the end of life, a person is no longer part of the world. There's nothing more they can do for the people they love. All that is left is to face what comes next with no more choices. I'm sorry, Wilbur. I wish we could have done more to protect you. I regret that your last months were spent on this case. I can only promise you that I will work hard to ensure your sacrifice means something. I will do my best to keep your granddaughter and her baby safe. I thought about our conversation by the river. But you had a good time. Take care. I walked to the front of the hospital and onto the round drive. The police were no longer there, no one in uniform, and the evidence teams had finished their work and left. The sun had gone down, and night covered the hospital. A chilly wind blew in from the river, making me pull my coat tighter around me. It was colder now than when I had walked into the hospital, but it felt nice. My Escalade was parked in the garage. Instead of going left, I chose to go right and walked a few steps to the river railing. I leaned over the railing as the wind and rain hit me. "It seems like a storm is coming," I said. I turned and saw Bill Franklin standing next to me. "Do I have a bodyguard now?" I joked. They say that when someone is too self-centered, they begin to think everything is about them. But he smiled. "I won't deny that I might be getting there, Franklin, but I was surprised to see you here after the rest of the department left." He looked out at the river, where the strong wind created small waves that ruffled his light brown hair. "I don't have anywhere else to go, Maitland. My shift ended and they have others to handle the reports. Nobody is home. Besides, I enjoy being by the river. Sometimes I think it's the only reason I've stayed this long." I understand that feeling. In the distance, towards the coast, a darker patch against the night sky glowed with hidden fires. Soon those lights would flash like lightning, and the cold rain would signal a November storm. "I'd guess it will come in a couple of hours, and it will be in the 30s by morning," I said. "You sound like a real weather expert," he said with a laugh. "Just someone who has lived here for most of my life. I've felt storms approaching for 30 years. You can sense it in the air. There's something about the energy that creates a special feeling. When I was a kid, I got caught outside with friends. We felt how different the air was around us. We were lucky to be standing there. People told us later that we should have been worried, but for some reason, nothing happened. It wasn't your time, Maitland. I believe in fate. I actually love storms. The world feels more alive just before a big one hits. It seems like anything is possible." We stood silently, watching the storm roll in. November 16th, 2005, Tuesday, 8 p.m., Nachi, Cocom Beach, Cozumel, Mexico. He stepped around the broken pieces of a valuable coffee table. Earlier, it had been an impressive piece of art, but now it lay in ruins. He spotted a man, hurt and struggling. The man had fallen near the balcony railing, trying to climb over. For a moment, Frank thought the man might not make it, but with a groan, he reached for the railing to pull himself up. Frank aimed his weapon at the man's back and fired several times. The man jerked with each shot and finally let go of the railing. To be sure, Frank aimed closely at the man's head. 2 shots would make sure he wouldn't recover. Suddenly, a force hit him from behind, pushing him forward against the metal railing. He dropped his weapon, trying to stay on his feet. Turning around, he saw one of the security guards peering around the corner with a rifle, his arm shaking. His back hurt, and he knew he would have a bruise, but it was better than the other outcome. He moved to the side, picking up his weapon again. As he got ready, a bullet bounced off the railing. Frank looked at the bodyguard, a young man with long hair. Blood dripped from the guard's arm. Frank had shot him multiple times, but despite his injuries, the young man tried to stay strong. As Frank aimed his weapon again, he noticed the young man was focusing on his own gun. He felt a bit of respect for him. Instead of hiding, he stood his ground. Hiding behind a chair, Frank felt it shift as bullets hit the fabric. He noticed that the furniture was sturdier than it looked. The bodyguard was trying to turn his rifle when Frank reached him and pushed it away. The gun skidded across the room, and the young man fell onto the soft rug. Frank looked down at him and understood the gravity of the situation. The bodyguard's eyes slowly closed, and he took a heavy breath before looking up one last time. Frank recognized the look on his face, something he had seen before, but he couldn't describe it. "Close your eyes, kid." Then he gave a reminder in Spanish. The young man's body jolted as Frank fired again. He turned as the door to another part of the condo opened, revealing a shorter, balding man stepping out with a rifle. "Is everything okay out here?" the man asked. "No thanks to you, Bulldog. I was busy. I heard the shots. I'll check the last room, then we need to call for help. This place is isolated, but assistance is coming." "Everything's under control. Finish it." There were 4 men and 2 women in the connected den and game room that had a wall full of video machines, 2 hot tubs, and another wet bar. He moved through the room carefully, making sure each person was no longer a threat. People sometimes survived even serious injuries, but his approach was effective. He heard a noise from the area where Bulldog had gone. There was a short scream, then another, followed by some commotion. There was something unusual about the screams. When he looked at Bulldog as he returned, the shorter man simply shrugged. Two girls, about 10 or 11. They were hiding in a closet. They were the last. Frank walked back to the railing. They were in the most remote part of the beach at the biggest and most luxurious condo on the island. It was dark and peaceful, just like it should be. I can't stand jobs that involve kids. Bulldog shrugged again. Do you really want Wilson to find them? No. We had no choice, Frank. You know how the agreement is. Nobody gets out alive, and I don't want people like us to be chased. After a moment, Frank said, Call for the pickup. Bulldog nodded. Sure. I'll find Wilson and the others. We'll take photos to confirm what we did, gather anything we might have touched, and leave. It shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. We might have that long before the authorities arrive. I'd rather not have to push our way out. Once Bulldog left, Frank leaned over the railing. Raindrops fell on his face. Turning to the left, he noticed lightning flickering in the night sky along the curve of the island. The wind was starting to pick up, bringing the rain with it. A storm was on the way. He took a deep breath, enjoying the smell and feel of the approaching storm. He loved storms. Things might not change often, but in this moment it felt like anything was possible.